Hello, this is the Stories Beside channel. I release videos every day for you. Subscribe and click the bell.
Charles, please think carefully. Barbara tried to talk some sense into her wayward son. She would never be the same. Why would you waste your life on a woman with a disfigured face? And the children? You'll want children someday, won't you? Don't you think they'll be afraid or embarrassed of their mother? They'll be teased if they see them with a mother like that. Son, I know you're being noble, but think of what's in store for you. You'll be tied to her for life. Mom, what are you talking about? Charles said with a wince, you can always get plastic surgery. Medicine today can put a person's face back together. We'll find the best clinic. I'll spare nothing for Monica. How much will the operation cost? Where will you get the money? You'll have to sell your apartment, and where will you live? Why would you put such a burden on yourself? Please cancel the wedding. Do you want me to kneel down? The woman hugged her son. Don't ruin your destiny, I beg you. How will you live with her? She's ugly. You won't be able to go out with her. Everyone will laugh at you. It's totally reckless to get involved with a woman like that. But I love her. Charles cried out. Don't you understand? Love? To hell with that kind of love. You'll find someone else. I don't need anyone else but her. I'll marry her anyway, no matter what she is. You have no right to forbid it. What's the world coming to an end with her? Look around, there are so many girls around, and you're so handsome. Anyone would be happy to marry you. Spare my nerves. Don't make any hasty decisions. Think it over. Things happen in life. If the wedding doesn't take place, the world won't collapse. You don't owe this girl anything. But it's my fault Monica's like this. How am I supposed to live with that? You don't know how I feel when I look at her. If I leave her now, who am I supposed to think I am afterwards? I've never been a scoundrel. You want me to betray her? Abandon her in her hour of need? You have pity in you, says your mother, and she's a bad counselor. First of all, you must think of yourself and me. I am your family. You'll have many women in your life, but only one mother. Are you trying to drive me to my grave? Barbara clutched at her heart. Ungrateful, selfish. To think he'd trade his mother for some girl. Maybe she's bewitched you. What are you talking about? Do you hear yourself? This is the 21st century. How else can you explain the fact that you value your own mother less than a stranger? Monica was on her way back from the treatment room. She was in a hurry because her fiancé was waiting for her in the room. She purred softly to herself, a simple melody. Her heart was overflowing with tenderness for her fiancé. She was already gripping the handle of the slightly open door when suddenly she heard, "Mother!" Charles looked at his mother in despair. "Don't make me choose. You know I love you very much, but Monica means a lot to me too. If you love me, if you care about me, then give up the idea of marrying her. I think she must realize that there can be nothing between you now. I will never accept her, and I will curse her if you do bring her into our home." The girl, holding her breath, waited to see what the bridegroom would say. He was silent for a moment, then a heavy sigh was heard. "Yes, Mom, I think you're right. I need to think about it. I'm glad you listened to my opinion. Remember, a mother would never do anything to harm her child. I care about you, about your future. It's good that Monica can't hear us talking. I have to find the right words so as not to hurt her too much. Oh, son!" There were tears in Barbara's voice. "How thoughtful you are." Monica stood silently with her back against the wall, tears choking her. "Charles, a friend once suggested, I recently discovered a cozy cafe. You should like it. Would you like to come over on Friday after work?" "Why not? It's been a long time since we've met for no reason. In the evening, The friends went to the cafe. "How do you like it here?" asked a friend. They had already ordered and were talking softly. "Yes, cozy. There are few customers and the food is decent." "Wait, the biggest surprise is coming up." He winked mysteriously. Suddenly the room was alive, chairs were moving, and his friend nodded toward the stage. Charles followed his gaze and marveled. A girl came to the microphone. She was incredibly beautiful, dark, thick hair, brown eyes framed by thick lashes, thin waist, and sensual lips. Music played and the stranger sang. Her high, strong voice penetrated the deepest depths of the heart, the most secret corners of the soul. Charles got goosebumps from her singing. "Who is it?" Charles could only say, he was so emotional he was speechless. "Monica." He grinned, noticing the gleam in the young man's eyes. A voice of astonishing beauty. "Would you like me to introduce you to her?" "No, really?" Charles was embarrassed. "It's embarrassing." "Well, as you know, I wouldn't miss a girl like that unless I was already head over heels in love." Meanwhile, the stranger finished singing and the audience stood up to applaud her. The friends sat for a while longer, but Monica did not go on stage again that evening. Charles was conquered by the angelic voice of the singer. Secretly from his friend, he began to come to the cafe to enjoy Monica's singing. He tried to have time to take a table closer to the stage so that no one prevented him from admiring the girl. After each performance, he gave her flowers and soft toys. Monica. It was a month before Charles decided to approach her. "May I invite you to a table and offer you a glass of wine?" "I don't drink alcohol, but I would love a glass of water." The girl replied with a smile. She had paid attention to this man for a long time. She did not show it, but she secretly sighed for him, regretting that he was too timid. The young man pushed back a chair, inviting her to sit down, and he called the waiter and asked for water for the lady. "You sing very beautifully," Charles said, overcoming his embarrassment. "I've never heard such a wonderful voice in my life." "Is that why you come here every Friday?" "Yes, I come for you because I like you." "Can I order something for you?" "Thank you, but I'm in a hurry to get home. Will you let me walk you home?" Monica nodded in agreement. The young man was glad, paid the waiter, and left the cafe after the girl. "I live nearby," she explained. "It's very convenient. You don't have to adapt to transportation." "Did you study singing somewhere?" "Yes, I did, at the Institute of Culture at the Faculty of Vocal Arts." "You have real talent." "Talent is 50% of everyday work, and the rest is a gift from above." "What it took for me to succeed. You must have had a great future." "Why did you give up the big stage?" "It wasn't just to sing in this cafe, was it?" "I can't believe this is what you dreamed of." "You're right," Monica admitted. "I had a successful solo career ahead of me, but one day, on a friend's birthday, we went to a karaoke bar. There I was persuaded to sing in public for the first time. I was accepted warmly. The audience did not let go for a long time and asked to sing again. And it was then that I realized that the big stage is not for me. I'm panic-stricken of performing in front of a large audience, so after I got my diploma, I got a job in this cafe." "Why here?" "There's probably a more popular place in town, and the pay is probably different." "What's special about it?" "I like the band of musicians. They have been entertaining visitors for a long time. Live music, sang, they liked it, and so it went. I don't regret staying here at all. Everyone treats me well. The owner of the cafe must have been happy to hire you." "Yes," Monica laughed. "He had more customers. Everyone came to hear me sing. I've been watching you for a month. You have your own fans who come to hear you sing all the time." "Are you one of them?" "Yes, I couldn't wait till Friday to see you again. I'll admit, I've never seen that before. You're an amazing girl, and here's my house." Monica stopped. "I hate to part with you," disappointedly said the young man. "I would like to invite you to the movies." "A movie?" The girl smiled. "Why not? Have you forgotten the last time you were in a movie theater?" Charles and Monica started dating. Their quiet, calm relationship gradually grew into love, and 3 years later, the young man decided to take a serious step. "Where are we going?" cheerfully asked Monica of Charles, noticing that instead of going home, the evening was approaching, directed the car to the countryside. "It's a surprise." Smiling, the man replied. He quickly cast a glance at his lover. The evening was lovely, the sky was clear, and the air was fresh. "Here we are." He stopped the car and helped Monica get out. "It's so beautiful." The girl gasped. "How did you find this place?" They stopped on the beach, the golden sand glistening in the setting sun, as if there were specks of gold scattered among its grains of sand, invisible during the day. "This is where my friends and I used to swim as children." From prying eyes, the beach was enclosed by a stone fence. They drove around the fence, and Monica shrieked in amazement. "What is this?" Sunset in the rays of the sun flew poor plan, not a cloud was visible. Suddenly, on the blue blanket of clear sky, there was a white image of a heart. "My God, what a beauty!" Monica jumped, clapping her hands like a little girl. "How could this be?" "These are my friends." Smiling, Charles replied. Monica didn't know how to declare my love. The man turned the girl to himself and looked into her eyes. "This is the most wonderful declaration of love." Monica said quietly, "Thank you." "Monica?" Charles grew serious. "I love you and I want you to be my wife." He took out a small velvet box from his jacket pocket, opened it, and a modest ring with a garnet appeared to the delighted girl. "Will you marry me?" "Yes," she answered in a trembling voice, putting the ring on her ring finger. "I've always dreamed of a ring like this." Tears glistened in the eyes of the happy bride. "How touching, my love." She put her arms around Charles and kissed him. "I was afraid you wouldn't agree." The young man pulled away from her. He took a step to the side and from somewhere in the pile of stones took out a bouquet of flowers. "I want us to never part with you again. I want to spend the rest of my life admiring you. I want our children to be like you. How can I refuse you when you've made all this beauty for me? You gave me such a beautiful fall sunset. You don't see that in the city." Meanwhile, the sun was sinking below the horizon, and the river was cool. Monica shivered. "Are you cold?" Charles asked thoughtfully, putting his arm around the girl's shoulders. "Let's go home. I want to celebrate the engagement soon, and there's another surprise waiting for us." The young people stood for a while longer, watching the paragliders in the sky. It's a pity that the image of the heart disappeared so quickly. Monica was upset. "We will definitely come back here," the man promised. "And if you want, we can go up into the sky ourselves." They got into the car and drove home. "You've made a real holiday for me today," Monica exclaimed. They almost didn't get into the apartment. "When did you get here?" She gasped when she saw the table set. In the center of the table stood a huge bouquet of roses. It wasn't difficult at all, Charles grinned, helping the girl to sit down at the table. One phone call, card payment, and dinner was on the table. "You're a spender." Monica laughed. "I don't spare anything for you." Raising his wine glass, the man said, "I am the happiest man today because the woman I have loved for a long time said yes to me. What else is there to dream about? It makes me happy to give you gifts. You admire them so sincerely. I love you. I love you very much. Monica, looking at him with eyes full of adoration. I don't know how I ever lived without you. You're the most precious thing I have. It's so nice to have met you. We should think about getting married, but first I want you to meet my mom. Charles suddenly announced. Now that I've proposed to you, it's a must. Besides, Mom's been dying to see you for a long time. I have to go on a business trip for a couple of months, and I'll come back and we'll get together. I'm sure you two will be friends. Mom's a wonderful woman. She only has one flaw. She loves me too much. He laughed. What if she didn't like me? That can't happen. If I like you, Mom will like you too. Don't worry, I'm sure you'll get along. Monica was counting the days until the return of her lover. She was anxious to meet his mother. One evening, the doorbell rang. Her heart jumped with happiness. Charles had arrived. Darling, I'm back, the man announced, standing on the threshold with a bouquet of flowers. I missed you so much. When I close my eyes, I see you. He stepped into the apartment, opened the girl's arms. And me. Trustingly, embracing her lover, she replied. I even marked the days in the calendar to bring our meeting closer. Let's not be apart for so long. It depends, but I'll try to be near you more often. Christmas is coming soon, the man informed freely, sitting down on the couch. I want to offer you a little trip. How would you feel about celebrating the holiday in Finland? I have the ticket in my pocket. He waved the ticket in front of her. Do you mind? What do you mean? Monica got excited. I never even dreamed of such a trip. I've never been abroad. But tomorrow my mom is expecting us for dinner. No refusal is accepted. She is preparing, and if you refuse, she will be offended. You don't want to upset your future mother-in-law, do you? No, what do you mean? I'd love to meet her, agreed the girl. She was anxious. She didn't know how her future mother-in-law would feel about her. In the morning I'll pick you up by car. We'll go in advance. Mom does not like it when late. And the weather promises not for walks. That day it was freezing in the morning, even though it had rained the day before. Slippery, Monica remarked worriedly, looking at the glistening crust of ice that covered the road. It's nothing, her fiancé reassured her. There is enough time. We won't hurry. The road is a road. Here and there, they got into traffic jams. They had to ride in the traffic. We are indecently late. The man frowned. Mom won't be happy. I didn't want to earn a reproach on the first day of our acquaintance. But it's not our fault there are so many accidents on the road. Monica was careful. She's a smart woman. She'll understand everything correctly, and on the contrary, she'll praise us for being careful. Try explaining that to Mom. Watching the road carefully, Charles said worriedly. She doesn't tolerate delays. Finally, we're on the highway. Relieved, the man sighed. Now we can step on the gas a little more. There are not many cars, and if we hurry, we can make it in time for lunch. Charles, please don't hurry. Monica tried to stop him. Look, the road is slippery. I'm afraid. You're not. The man waved his hand nonchalantly. I have a front-wheel drive beauty. Will not let you down. Even if it skids, a little more gas will level itself. Listen, he asked the girl. Get some water. It's behind my seat. My mouth is dry. Monica unbuckled her seat belt. She couldn't get it any other way. At that moment, the car swerved. Hold on. Charles shouted fearfully, trying to straighten the car, but the car was out of control. It won't listen to me. Charles! The girl watched in horror as the car swerved from side to side on the road. Do something. We're going to crash. Slow down. It happened in an instant. They were thrown to the side of the road. Charles tried to avoid hitting the tree, but the impact couldn't be avoided. There was debris flying. Monica was thrown through the windshield. Charles' airbag deployed. He lost consciousness for a while, his head hitting the door. People were already running to their aid. "Kid?" Charles heard someone's voice. "Are you alive? We're going to get you now. Are your arms and legs okay? Say something." "Monica?" The man spoke slowly. "Monica, is she alive? I had a girl with me. How is she? What's wrong with her? Tell me, what's wrong with Monica?" "She's alive, but the girl's unlucky. Her face was shredded by shrapnel. They're giving her first aid now. Hang on, kid. The ambulance is on its way." They helped him out of the car. Charles leaned back against the car, clutched his head. He was dizzy, but staggering, he reached the place where his fiancée was lying. Doctors were busy around her. "Darling." Charles fell on his knees in front of the girl, crying, grabbed her hand and brought it to his lips, kissing her. "Forgive me. I was a fool not to listen to you. I'm sorry." "What have I done?" With fear thought the man, looking at the disfigured, deep cuts on the face of his bride. "It's not her. It can't be my Monica. Is this mess the face of my beloved? Is it my fault she's become like this? She'll never forgive me. God, there's no forgiveness for me. I can't feel my face." Barely moving her lips, the girl said. Charles, hearing her voice, realized that in front of him, covered in blood, really lay Monica. "You can't talk at all right now, and neither can you, young man." With a stern look at Charles, the doctor said, treating the wounds, "It wouldn't hurt to come with us. You look very pale." "I'm fine." "You're just in shock. You should be under observation for a while." "Can you walk on your own?" Yes, I'll come with you." "Monica, I'm with you. Don't worry, love, I'll be right here." "Who is this girl?" "She's my fiancée." "Monica, my darling, everything will be all right." Hurriedly reassured the man, sitting next to her in the car, he tried not to look at her. "Charles?" Monica asked in a whisper. "What's wrong with my face? Tell me the truth." "I don't know. It's bandaged. You'll be fine, they'll fix you up." "Don't say anything, you mustn't worry. We'll go to the hospital, they'll fix it. Just hold on. I can't feel my face. It hurts so much." She cried and fell into darkness. Monica slowly opened her eyes. "Well done." She heard a cheerful male voice beside her. "She's awake. You gave us quite a scare." "What's wrong with me?" slowly asked the girl. It was hard for her to look at the man leaning toward her. "Am I in the hospital?" "You have a concussion." The doctor was silent. "Your face and hands were the worst affected. Do you remember the accident?" She raised her hands. They were bandaged. Monica brought them to her face, touched them, and cried out in pain. "Yes, I remember. It was slippery. We lost control. And when you take the bandage off, I want to see my face." "In a couple days." The doctor's been quiet again. "Then we can assess the extent of the damage and decide what to do next. We'll need plastic surgery, and I think we'll need more than one. We'll do what we can. My face, is it badly damaged? Will I have any scars? Tell me, I want to know the truth. I don't want to lie to you, but you'll never be the same as you were before the accident. I'm sorry. The cuts from the glass were too deep. We'd, of course, stitched you up, but the scars, they must be dealt with. Nothing is impossible today," the doctor reassured her. "Now you know what kind of technology. They'll put you back on your feet in no time." The girl's eyes showed tears. "Where is my phone?" She asked in a weak voice. "I need to call my mom. She's worried. I should have told her a long time ago that we'd reached the guests." And Charles? Suddenly the girl asked. How is he? I want to see him. Is he here too? He's already home. He's lucky. He's practically unhurt, just shocked from the impact. The doctor handed her the phone. Wouldn't you rather worry about yourself? All right, I'll leave you to it. He's on his way out of the room. Don't talk too long. You should get more rest. When the door closed behind him, Monica dialed her mother's number. Mommy, with tears in her voice, the girl said. Monica heard her mother's frightened voice in the phone. Why can't I reach you? Where have you disappeared? How can you make me worry? I almost went crazy with worry. I don't know where to find you. You didn't leave an address. Where are you? Mommy, please come. I'm very sick. I'm in the hospital. She heard her mother cry out. Then there was a short beep. Monica. A couple hours later, Betty was at her daughter's house. Oh, my darling, how could it be? She wailed when she saw her daughter. She sat down on the edge of the bed, took her bandaged hands in her own, and kissed them. What happened? Barely holding back tears, she asked. Mommy. The girl spoke quietly. Charles and I were on our way to visit his mother, and the car skidded. She fell silent, then grinned crookedly. Am I very ugly? No, you're not, my dear. Betty gently stroked her face hidden under the bandages and smiled. You're the prettiest. You're my daughter. Her mother's heart was bleeding and sobs were ready to burst from her chest, but she held on. I have no right to show weakness in front of my daughter. I must be strong, the woman thought. She needs my help now, not my tantrums. The doctor said that surgery would be necessary, but it would have to be paid for. He said it can be fixed. We'll do it. Don't worry. We'll find the money, and Charles will help. Where is he, by the way? What about him you haven't called? He's only got a mild concussion and some minor cuts, but he's okay. He just needs some time to recover. Get his car fixed. He hasn't called yet, but I'm really looking forward to it. Well, all right. Betty's up. I'm going to go. The doctor said not to stay long, and I'll come back tomorrow. She leaned over and kissed her daughter. Get well. Don't miss me. I love you. The woman left the room and went to the doctor's office. Doctor, tell me, how is Monica's condition? What should I prepare for? I must admit, I can't give you much hope. The cuts are deep, and I'd be more concerned about her mental state. She has yet to realize that her appearance is irretrievably lost. I think your biggest challenges lie ahead. Raise the money for the surgery and be patient. There's a lot riding on this, including you. It will be a terrible blow for her to see herself. Grief-stricken, Betty walked out of the office, tears choking her. She left the hospital, sank down on a park bench without strength, and finally gave vent to her tears. My poor, poor girl, she thought. How unlucky she is. She won't be able to go on stage now. It would kill her. No way. The woman wiped her tears. I'll do anything to get my daughter back to her normal face, no matter how much money it costs. Determined, she drove home. Son. Barbara blocked her son's path. Where are you going? The doctor said to stay in bed a little longer. Mom, I have to go to the hospital. Monica's waiting for me. I can't hide like a coward. You can't go. The woman was frantic. You need to rest. Are you kidding me? Concussion. Look at you. You're still so weak. I won't let you in. Mom, you can see I'm perfectly fine. I should be with her. It's been 2 days and I'm still lying around. She's waiting for me. She doesn't even know what's wrong with me. She's poor, alone. She's not alone. Pushing her son back to the bed, Barbara said. There are doctors and nurses looking after her. I'm the one looking after you here, and I'm very concerned about your health, and I don't care about your Monica. Get back to bed right now. Mom, I'm fine. I'm healthy now. I want to see Monica. She needs my support. You can't stop me from going to see my fiancé, who I haven't even met yet. We were just on our way over to meet you. Charles sank down on the bed, wrapped his arms around his head. When the accident happened, and it wasn't our fault that it happened. Listen, Mom. He jumped to his feet. I have to be there for her. She needs me. She thinks God knows what she thinks of me. She'll say I've given up, and I'm sitting at home, healthy and strong, while she's still in the hospital. You can't stop me. I'm going to her. That's the way it is. The woman chin up. I'm coming with you, and I'm going to meet this girl. I won't let you go alone, and don't mind. What if you get sick? Why would you go there? She'll feel uncomfortable around you. Let's wait until Monica's out of the hospital. We'll get together at the table like we planned. I still have to get the tickets. We're not going to Finland now, and I've been looking forward to spending Christmas night in a small town in a medieval fortress. It's so romantic. There will be more romantic encounters in your life. Not anytime soon. The man became sad. By the way, you could go there alone. That's not a bad idea. You'll recover from all this horror. Forget it like a bad dream. How could I ever forget Monica's face? You don't know what happened to it. He squeezed his eyes shut, remembering the bloody bride. I can't believe all this happened to us. Don't torture yourself. It's already happened, and there's nothing you can do about it. You have to go on living. There's nothing wrong with you, and she'll be fine. Mom, if you could see her, she's never going to get better. I have to support her. Poor thing, she doesn't know what's ahead of her. I don't mind, just on my terms. So, what? We go to the hospital together. Otherwise, I won't let you out of the apartment. Don't talk me out of it. Okay, Mom, we'll go together. My son gave in. Monica was dozing. She heard the door creak softly and opened her eyes. Hello, darling. She heard her fiancé's voice. I'm sorry I couldn't visit you sooner. Charles. The girl rejoiced and stood up on the bed. I've been waiting for you to come to me. It's very boring here without you. Lie down, lie down. A young man came to her and lowered himself down beside her. Help me, please, Monica asked. Put a pillow under her back. Sitting down, she asked, How are you feeling? I was really worried about you. You didn't call. You didn't come. I didn't know what was wrong. I'm fine. I wasn't really hurt. I feel fine now. Nothing and not good. Barbara jumped in. He's a victim of the accident, too, but he's trying not to show it. He barely woke up and came straight to the hospital to see you. Monica, meet my mom. Embarrassed by his mother's cold tone, Charles said, Nice to meet you. The girl said quietly, It's a pity we had to meet under such sad circumstances. Barbara said calmly, But I was eager to see the girl my son had told me so much about. What do the doctors say, sweetheart? They say it's going to require plastic surgery. I'm sorry to hear that. I sympathize with Barbara. But you're young, you'll like yourself. When it heals, you'll be as good as new. Monica nodded in agreement, but she kept her eyes on her fiancé. I'm feeling fine now, so I'll come to see you more often, Charles promised. Then you'll get your stitches out and come home. And our wedding? The girl stuttered. The wedding will have to be postponed. Charles looked at her guiltily. I'm sorry about that, but don't worry, we'll be fine. The main thing is to get you out of the hospital as soon as possible. Monica? A nurse came into the room. Let's go to the treatment room. She helped the patient up. I'll do the dressing. Will you wait for me? Monica asked me in a pleading tone. Will you stay with me a little longer? Yes, Charles nodded. Don't worry, I won't leave. Come back soon. As Monica was led away, Barbara turned on her son. What wedding are you talking about? Don't even think about it. I didn't raise you to spend the rest of your days with an invalid. What are you talking about, Mom? Charles was outraged. Monica, not an invalid. We'll operate on her, and more than one if necessary, and she'll be just like she was before. Haven't you realized yet that she won't be the same? You're gonna spend the rest of your life working on her plastic surgery. Your father should hear you now, she cried. How much do I miss him? You don't cherish and appreciate me at all. How can you do this to your mother? Why am I being punished like this? Are you going to ruin yourself for some girl? My father and I hoped that we'd be supported in our old age, but you're ungrateful. Don't be silly. Charles hugged his mother. I'm very grateful to you for being faithful to your father all your life. You think he didn't see how hard it was for you? Yes, you were 7 when your father was gone. I raised you alone. It's so beautiful to see how handsome you've become. Tall, slender, blue-eyed, and even in high school, girls followed you in droves. Look around, and there are so many beautiful girls, healthy, full of strength. Choose anyone. I don't want any others. Charles was stubborn. I want to marry Monica. She'll get well, and you'll see what a wonderful person she is. You stubborn, soulless son. Mother was angry. She is not your wife yet, but she has already come between us, and yet I have never wanted anything for you. I have lived for you, and now in my old age, I find out that some girl is dearer to me than my mother. Did I think I'd live to see such black ingratitude for my favorite son? No, Mother. In despair, Charles exclaimed, You are both dear to me. She will cost us dearly. Why are you clinging to her? You want to lay your life, your career on the altar of love? Will she appreciate it? I know the kind of girl who'll use it and spit it out. How long does she have to be in therapy? A year, 2 years. I want to have grandchildren, she cried. I don't know how long I have left in this world. Will she be able to give birth to a healthy heir? I beg you, son, don't ruin yourself. Do you want us to pay her money to leave you alone? What do you need her for? But it's my fault that Monica has become like you don't understand. I can't eat. I can't sleep. I can't sleep. I have nightmares at night with her bloody face in front of me. I must stay with her. It's the pity in you. Mother objected. She's a bad counselor. First of all, you must think of yourself and me. I'm your family. You'll have many women in your life, but only one mother. Are you trying to drive me to my grave? Barbara clutched at her heart. Ungrateful. Monica was coming back from the evil office. She was in a hurry to see her fiancé. Her heart was singing. She longed to be with him a little longer. The presence of his mother was a disappointment, for from the first moment, it was clear that she did not approve of her son's choice. But even this circumstance did not prevent the girl from rejoicing at the long-awaited meeting. She had already taken the handle, slightly at the open door, as suddenly heard. Mom. Charles spoke in desperation. Don't make me choose. You know I love you very much, and I realize that I owe you everything. If you love me, if you care about me, give up the idea of marrying Monica. I think she must realize that there can be nothing between you now. Barbara's cold tone struck a chord with the girl. I'll never accept her, and I'll curse you if you dare to bring her into the house. That girl will make our life unbearable and drive me to my grave before my time. If you don't care what happens to us, then marry her. But be warned, I won't help you. And you're still broke. You'll come to your mother, and I won't give my blessing. Live as you like." Monica, holding her breath, waited to see what the groom would say. He was silent. Then a heavy sigh was heard. "Yes, Mom, I think you're right. We must weigh everything carefully. I'm glad you listened to my opinion. My darling boy, believe me, I have only your welfare in mind. It's a good thing Monica can't hear us. I must find the right words to explain everything and try not to hurt too much." "Oh, son," there were tears in Barbara's voice. "How thoughtful are you?" Monica stood with her back against the cold wall, tears choking her. The talking had stopped. She opened the door. "I'm back." The girl tried to give her voice her usual cheerfulness and pretended she hadn't heard anything. "Thank you for waiting for me, but the treatments were so tiring. I'd like to rest." "Excuse me, can you leave me alone?" "Yes, yes." Charles hurried off, pleased to be able to leave. "Rest, sleep is the best medicine for you now. I'll definitely come again when the doctors say it's okay. We'll walk with you in the park. The hospital has a great park. Get well, my dear," Barbara said in an indifferent tone. She looked triumphantly at her daughter-in-law who had failed. She had won the battle for her son. Charles never came to the hospital again. I want to look at myself in the mirror. It was a long time before the sick woman decided to ask the doctor, "Are you sure you're ready for this step?" "I'll have to do it someday anyway, so let it be now. Lisa, bring the mirror into the room and take off the bandages." Monica closed her eyes, gathering her strength, then resolutely opened them and saw her reflection. "Is that me?" Horrified, she asked. Tears welled up in her eyes. A stranger was staring back at her, her face disfigured by scars. One eye was half covered, pulled down by a scar. Another scar fixed the corner of her mouth with a downward slope. The face wasn't alive, as if someone had pulled an intimidating mask over it. Monica moaned helplessly, covering her face with her palms. She scratched at her skin with her fingers as if she wanted to peel it off. "How am I going to live with a face like this? I'm ugly." She threw her face on the pillow and sobbed, collashmally pounding her fists on the bed. "She's hysterical. Give her a sedative immediately." The doctor ordered, but he grabbed Monica, turned her around, and hugged her tightly, not letting her break free. She was sobbing and could not stop. The robe on the doctor's chest became wet from her tears. It's okay, girl," he pleaded with Monica. "You can handle it. You're strong. The main thing is that you're alive. Why should I live like this? Don't you see what's become of me? I'm disgusted with myself, and how will the people around me look at me? Charles? My poor Charles. He was right. I'm ugly. I can't be loved. He was right to leave me." A nurse came and took a sedative. After a few minutes, the girl quieted down, sobbed convulsively a few times, and collapsed in the man's arms. "Everything will be all right," said the doctor, putting the patient to bed. He ineptly stroked her head, saying, "Everything will get better. Plastic surgeries will do their job and fix her face." But it would never be the same again. As she fell asleep, Monica said, secretly from her mother, Charles found out when Monica was being discharged from the hospital and came to meet her. He was in a hurry, holding a huge bouquet of flowers. Where? When he entered the room, he saw a nurse rearranging the bed where the girl had been lying a short time ago. Monica was discharged. Without stopping what she was doing, the nurse said, "You're late. You should have come earlier." "What about you, fiancé?" "I didn't have time," Charles said, confused. He turned around and wanted to leave. "She left a letter for you there." He heard behind him. "A letter? Where is it?" The girl silently took an envelope out of her pocket and handed it to him. "Take it." The man handed her a bouquet. "This is for you, thank you." He walked out of the hospital into the street and sat down on a bench in the front garden. "Dear, beloved Charles, I had no idea that one day I would have to write these lines, but everything changed in an instant. Charles, I heard you talking." The man turned pale as he read those words. "And I don't want to be a burden to you. Your mother is right. We can't have anything in common now. I've changed since the accident, and I'll never be the same again. And it's not just my look. I didn't recognize you. I didn't want to believe that I was looking at you, my beloved beauty, my fiancée." The thought gave him a headache. I'd even thought I had made a mistake, and that I was looking at a strange woman, not you, Monica, whom I adored. The accident had mutilated your lips, your nose, your cheeks. Everything I loved to kiss so much. This face was disgusting. I refused to believe I could see you. I shuddered to imagine having to touch what was once your face. I wouldn't have to deceive you by pretending to love you. You were right to leave without saying goodbye. You were stronger than I was, and it would have been hard for me to tell you all that, but I didn't have to explain." Charles stood up, hesitated for a moment, then tore the letter into small pieces and threw it in the trash. Then he squared his shoulders, took a deep breath, and walked away from the hospital. "Daughter," Betty urged me, "eat. You're starving yourself. You're shut up at home, like a snail in a shell. You can't torture yourself like that. You're burying yourself alive. Shall we go for a walk? You haven't left your room in so long." "I don't want anything, Mom." In a colorless voice, Monica answered. She was lying with her back turned to the wall, wrapped in a blanket. "Maybe I want to die. I can't even show my face on the street with this face, and you're asking me to go out. I should only be in horror movies now." "My dear," Mother secretly wiped away a tear. "You have to live for me. You have arms, legs, you still have a voice after all. Why should I? I'll never be able to go on stage again anyway. I'd rather die than live with the thought that nobody needs me. Don't say that, I need you. We'll figure something out. What about Charles? Why doesn't he call? We broke up." "Broke up how? Why? Did he leave you at a time like this?" "That bastard. I don't want to talk about it. He's gone. Leave me alone, please. You poor thing." Her mother sighed heavily and left the room. "No way." With these words, Betty sat down at the computer. "I'm not going to let you get depressed. There has to be a way out. I'll find a clinic that will help you get back to normal." "There you go." After a while, she exclaimed, "There is such a clinic, and here's the name of the doctor. Wow, quite young, and already so famous. Let's see some pictures of patients. He's a real talent. I'll send a picture to Monica and make an appointment." That's it. She pressed the key one last time, satisfied. Now we wait for the call. What if Monica refuses to go? Suddenly the woman was afraid. She won't go anywhere. I'll persuade her to go. And if she doesn't, I'll make her go. She's not her own enemy. A couple of weeks later, an invitation for a consultation arrived. "Monica." Betty cautiously entered her daughter's room, standing at the window looking out at the street. "I have good news for you." The girl silently turned to her mother. "I've contacted a doctor at a clinic that specializes in complicated cases like yours. They replied today they're expecting you for an appointment in a month." "Why did you do that?" "I'm not going anywhere anyway. I'm ugly now. It's like a stigma. How can you imagine me riding on a train? Do you want me to be in full view of everyone and have people pointing fingers at me?" "Yeah, no one would let me go anywhere. I'm a freak. Don't talk about yourself like that. I won't let anyone insult you. You can't protect me from that. Don't you get it yet? It's, Mommy, if you can do it, then I agreed to go. A few days later, Monica tried on an elegant black mask made of a thin lace veil. It was like a second skin, hiding the scars but contouring the face. There, Betty said, admiring her creation. Now you can only be recognized by your figure, and it's beautiful. The girl stood in front of the mirror and looked at herself. She liked what she saw. Thank you, Mom. I feel more confident now. I'm ready to go to the clinic. Good girl. The woman sighed with relief. Their view will definitely help you. I read the reviews. The doctor works real miracles and will help you. I'm sure that we will not go in vain. A couple of days later, they already had tickets for the train. On the appointed day, they arrived in the city, checked into a hotel, and went to look for the clinic. Good afternoon. Betty approached the receptionist's desk. We have an appointment. Yes. The nurse nodded affirmatively after looking at the computer. Come into the office. The doctor is waiting for you. Monica, shy, entered the office. Hello. The doctor smiled at her. Come in and take off your mask, please. What a great idea to protect yourself from prying eyes. I'll have to adopt it. It was my mom's idea. The girl was embarrassed. The man was handsome, with strong but surprisingly soft hands. Did you come by yourself? Asked the doctor, scrutinizing her face, touching the scars. He flipped through her medical history, shook his head concernedly. No, with my mom. She's waiting in the hallway. That's good. The doctor looked at the patient thoughtfully. Let's call Mom. I understand that she will have to pay for the operation. I don't want to hide anything from you. He spoke as the two women sat down across from him. The case is really complicated. Of course, your surgeon has tried and carefully entered the cuts, but they are deep in some places, so the scars are rough. What should we do? We'd agree to anything, just to restore the face. Monica is a singer. It is very important for her to have a beautiful appearance. Of course, medicine can do a lot of things now, but the treatment is long. It will take more than one operation, and all of them are paid because we are a commercial organization. How much money are we talking about? The man thought, wrote a few lines on a paper and handed it to Betty. She turned pale. Is this the total amount for the treatment? No, the cost of one operation. Your daughter's injuries are too extensive. In fact, we'll have to reshape her face to get her back to her former appearance. It's not an easy task, and it has to be done quickly before the scarring fades. If you agree, we'll make a contract and start the treatment right away. We'll have to think about it. Betty looked at her daughter, desperation in her eyes. We didn't expect to need this kind of money. Think about it. The doctor agreed. You have the phone number, and when you're ready, contact us, but I'd advise you not to take too long. Loss of time will worsen the results of treatment. The women left the clinic upset. We'll never raise that much money. Monica said, especially now that you're working alone. We have to think of something. The mother realized that the money was too much for the family. There are some funds. You could apply to them. I'll find out. We'll put a call out on the internet. Ask friends, acquaintances. There are many kind people in the world. They will help our grief. We must pull ourselves together. Let's not give in to despair. Mommy. The girl hugged her mother, then pulled away from her and said firmly, I love you very much, but let's face it. No one will give us such money, and we cannot collect it ourselves until the end of the century. We shouldn't cling to our illusions. What do? We can't give up. There's no water under the stone. Live. Monica answered simply. If I didn't die in that accident, Then we'll live. Now that I have this mask, I'll try to find a job. Everything will be fine. Let's go to the hotel. We'll go home tomorrow. Home and walls help. Surrounded by friends and acquaintances, it'll be easier. It'll never be easier for me now. You go ahead. I want to walk around a bit. See what sights there are around here. I need some time alone. I'm sorry, it's been a long day. Yeah, I understand. Don't stay too long. It's a strange city. You don't know what's going on. Okay, Mommy, don't worry. Monica walked through the city with interest, looking at the houses, the old buildings, the churches. Amazing, she thought, looking around. How the architect of the city was able to link the old and the new city, and no one is bothering anyone. What is this? The girl stopped and listened. Was it just me, or is someone really playing? She walked toward the sound. From the open door of an unremarkable cafe, a familiar tune was playing. Monica smiled, her favorite music, and how great the musician was playing. The girl entered the cafe at this hour. There were almost no visitors. As mesmerized, she sat down near the bar. Will you order something? Looking at her mask with interest, the bartender asked, A glass of juice, please. The girl asked, keeping her eyes on the musician who was playing without looking at the keys. His thin fingers softly touched the keys, fluttering lightly, subtly over them. The melody faded, and the man put his hands on his knees, continuing to listen to the fading sounds. Finally, he stood up and took a seat at the bar as well. His blue eyes, framed by thick, long lashes, stared at her unblinkingly. Why are you looking at me like that? The girl flared under his gaze. Didn't anyone ever tell you that it's unseemly to stare at a stranger? I'm sorry. The man was embarrassed and looked away. They were staring at the same point without blinking. I didn't mean to offend you. Don't think anything bad. I assure you, I had no intention of insulting you. He's blind. Leaning toward her, the bartender whispered, I'm sorry. Monica blushed. I didn't know. I'm very embarrassed that I jumped on you. I should be the one apologizing to you. I scared you. I usually stay away from visitors, but you give me such warmth. He was quiet for a moment. What's your name? Monica. I'm Sebastian. I'm very pleased to meet you. He held out his hand, and the girl took it. You have thin fingers and your hand is so delicate. You played very beautifully. She took her hand away gently. There was a look of distress on his face. I came here because I heard the music from afar. Did you like it? The man cheered up. I like to play here. The owner spared no expense and bought a good instrument. It's a pity that there are not so many real music lovers among the visitors. Do you like music? Yes, I do. Monica smiled at the memory. I used to sing in a cafe like this one. Do you sing? Sebastian perked up. How stupid am I? I should have known you had a singing voice. Come on, I want to hear you sing now. He walked confidently toward the instrument. Oh, I'm embarrassed. The girl protested confusedly. You don't know my repertoire. How will you play along with me? You can't see the notes? I'm sorry, I've offended you again. Not at all. Sebastian laughed. You apologize too often. I am used to my position and do not take offense if someone accidentally, awkwardly word hurt me. What will you perform? I don't know. I'm really embarrassed. I'm embarrassed. It's embarrassing to hide my talent. You and I, God gave us the ability to play and sing for people. We have no right to hide it. Sebastian sat down at his instrument and ran across the keys. Start singing. I can pick up the melody. Monica picked up the first notes. She got carried away and didn't notice that the cafe was already full of people. Some of them were even standing, as there were no free tables. The girl looked only at the pianist, reacted to all the changes in his face, and his face spoke more than his eyes. When she sang the third song, the hall exploded with applause. "Thank you." Happy, Monica looked around at the audience. She had never been received like this before. "More," the audience chanted. "Sing more. Good evening." An imposing older man approached the girl. "Your marvelous voice has attracted an unprecedented number of visitors to the cafe. I'm the director of this establishment. I won't go around and around. I'm offering you a job. I'll pay you well. Take it. You have a great duet with Sebastian. You're both very talented. It's a pleasure to have my cafe as a meeting place for you." "Oh, that's impossible." Monica was confused. "I didn't even think about it." "Why not?" "I'll pay well. We don't have any cafes with live music in the city. We'll be the first. We'll make a lot of money. I'm sure no one will offer you more than me. The thing is, I live in another city. I've already got tickets in my pocket, and I'm not likely to ever come back here. Do you have a family?" "No, I live with my mom. Right now she's looking forward to having me back. A prestigious job you'd hate to lose. I lost it in a car accident. So what's there to think about?" The man looked triumphantly at the girl. "You have nothing to lose, and here you have already found admirers of your talent and a job. But me, I can only perform in disguise. No one will reproach you for that. On the contrary, your unusual appearance gives your image a certain mystery and gives one more reason to come to us to look at you. But first of all, people will go for your voice. I've never heard such a thing. I need to consult with my mom. We're just passing through your town. Think about it, but not for long. I'll see you tomorrow night to sign a cooperation agreement." "Monica, say yes." Sebastian stood up from behind his instrument. "We'll make a great team. I just met a worthy partner, and I don't want to lose you immediately." The man found her hand and squeezed it. "I can't give you an answer right away. I have obligations to my mom." Guiltily said the girl. "Promise me you'll think carefully." The girl warmly said goodbye to her new acquaintance and hurried to the hotel. "Daughter, at last. I've been worried sick." Betty met her daughter right at the threshold, as if she was standing at the door, waiting for her to enter the room. "Where have you been so long? I thought you were lost or something." "Mommy." Monica hugged her mother and spun her around. "Do you have no idea what has happened to me in these few hours? I'm staying here." "What? What do you mean you're staying here?" No, I don't want to hear anything." The woman protested. "We're leaving here tomorrow. There's nothing to keep us here. I'm not going anywhere. I've been offered a job." "What kind of job?" "I'll sing in a cafe." "But you can sing in our town. Why stay here?" "There are strangers around." "That's what I wanted to tell you." "I met a man." "Yeah, when did you meet him?" "Now, Mom, he plays so well you can hear it. He's so handsome, so kind, so gentle. I can't believe it. When did you see all these qualities in him?" "Sometimes it only takes a minute to realize that he's the one for you. Now I know for sure that love at first sight is real." "He's like that." She hugged her mother. "I'll introduce you to him. Sebastian is a wonderful person. Staying in a strange city among strangers." The mother got out of her daughter's embrace. "That's not what you're doing." "Mommy, I'm an adult, and I can already manage my own life. I have nothing to lose. I was abandoned by the man I love, fired from my old job. I have nothing to hold me back. And here in this city, I can start from scratch. What about me?" There were tears in Betty's eyes. You haven't thought at all about what's going to happen to me. You don't need me anymore. No, of course I do. Sweet, dear Mommy, I'm so grateful for your support. I promise I'll come as soon as I have any free moment and you'll come to me. I will never stop loving you, Mommy. You've done so much for me. Her daughter hugged her. But now I want to take care of you myself. This is my chance to try to be happy. And this man you speak of, how did he feel about your looks? Mom, Monica confessed. He's blind. He doesn't see me, and to everyone else my face is hidden under the mask you sewed. No one here knows of my misfortune. They are only interested in my voice. You should see the way I've been received. I feel needed again. Well, my dear daughter, you really have a right to your life. I won't hold you back. What's most important to a mother is that her child be happy. Thank you, Mommy. You must have really found yourself. I haven't seen the sparkle in your eyes in a long time. It's the selfishness of parenthood and the desire to protect my child from adversity. Mommy, you're the only reason I'm alive. You're the best mom in the world. The next day, Monica saw her mother off and went to the store. She had to find a concert dress. This dress suits you very well. The sales clerk looked at her with admiration. It fits you perfectly. It emphasizes your figure. I also need shoes. High-heeled shoes came right away. Let me offer you this pearl necklace. It will bring a touch of freshness to your dark color scheme. Thank you. Critically examining herself in the mirror, the girl said, I like it. The only thing missing is gloves. She showed her scarred hands. The sales clerk looked at them fearfully and pulled out long lace gloves. You'll be irresistible in this outfit. She remarked. Back at the inn, Monica changed her clothes, styling her thick, dark hair. She stood for a moment, critically assessing herself in the mirror. Now I'm a real artist. The girl smiled at her reflection. I thought life was over after the accident. I condemned myself, but all is not lost. Sebastian was playing something, sitting at the piano, but as soon as the girl entered the cafe, he immediately raised his head. Monica? He rejoiced. You haven't left. How did you know that I entered? She wondered. I felt your presence. So you're staying? Yes, I've decided to stay. She walked over to him and stopped beside the instrument. I'm very glad. The man held out his hand. Monica shook it. Sebastian brought it to his lips and kissed it. Your hands smell minty. It's the cream. Monica was embarrassed. She was embarrassed by his blatant attention, though she enjoyed being near him. You know you can tell a lot about a person by their smell. What can you tell about me? The girl laughed. You are a calm, gentle person, absolutely not conflicted, and now mint helps you cope with depression, am I right? Right. Monica raised her eyebrows in surprise. How do you know all this? If a person loses a feeling, he immediately gains other possibilities. We'll come back to our conversation, but now let's not disappoint the visitors. They've been waiting for you to sing something for a long time. He picked up the first notes and Monica sang. Her voice sounded tentative at first, but then grew stronger. She didn't look at the audience. She looked at Sebastian, mesmerized by his playing. His face shone, the look in his sightless eyes mesmerizing. The girl felt his silent support. He listened to her voice, and his expression gradually changed. At first it was tense. He was worried about her. Then the tension subsided, and he calmed down, rejoicing in her success. Bravo! The visitors shouted. When the last sounds of the piano died down, they applauded and laughed. Someone handed flowers to the happy Monica, and she kept her eyes on her new acquaintance, a peaceful smile on his face. Monica, you have a real talent. admired the cafe director. "I'm lucky you stopped by. You should be on the big stage. I like chamber concerts." The girl smiled modestly. "I don't seek publicity. I'm not asking." He whispered in her ear, "Why are you in a mask? But people are lost in speculation, trying to find out your secret." "Can I not explain anything?" she asked. "This subject is too painful for me." All right, but is there anything I can do for you?" "I'm staying at a hotel where I can get a place to stay. I have just the perfect place for you." The director was pleased. "My sister rents out a room. I think I can make a deal with her. I'm sure she'll meet you and lower the price. You'll be comfortable there, especially since the house isn't far from the cafe." "Oh, that would be wonderful. Thank you very much. Your workday is at an end. We'll go to the hotel now, and then I'll take you to the apartment, show you around, and help you get settled." Monica said a warm goodbye to Sebastian and went to pack her things. "Daughter," Betty called her every night. "I'm very worried. How are you doing alone? Are you being abused? And the apartment you're living in?" "I'm fine." The girl assured her mother, "I like working here. People are helpful, so well received. At work I forget about my problem. How are you feeling? You haven't eaten anything at home, only cried, and there are no friends or acquaintances there. Take care of yourself, my dear. I have music." Monica answered simply, "I don't feel inferior anymore. My gigs are waiting. I like this life. I've accepted the fact that I'll have to wear a mask for the rest of my life. You know, there's an upside to that. No one can see my face, and I can observe everyone unobstructed. I'd assure you, it's fascinating. And how's your new acquaintance?" "Sebastian?" Monica blushed. "I think fate brought us together in this city, in this cafe. He and I are on the same wavelength, musically. We don't even need to talk. Everything becomes clear when he plays and I sing. Our hearts beat in unison. And yet I'm still a little uneasy. You don't know anything about him. You have nothing to worry about. Neither he nor I talk about our past. I guess it's not time yet. We're just good together. You don't think about Charles at all?" "No, I'm over that pain. And it's a good thing we broke up, because otherwise I never would have met Sebastian. He means a lot to me." After these conversations, Monica couldn't sleep for a long time. She lay in the dark and remembered the light, casual touch of Sebastian's hand, the warm smile he gave her when he sensed that she was upset about something. And yet she was desperate to know what had happened to Sebastian, what had caused him to go blind. "Monica?" Sebastian suggested to her one day when the customers had already left. "Why don't we go for a walk? It's such a lovely evening. It's a shame to go home." "I agree. I don't want to go back to my cramped room either." They walked in silence, each thinking about something else. "Sebastian?" A girl broke the silence. "What did you do before? You wouldn't believe it." He grinned bitterly. "An accountant." "An accountant?" The girl was amazed. "But you play so well. I thought you had a conservatory behind you." "When I was a kid, I went to an ordinary music school. I really liked playing the piano. Whenever I had a free minute, I'd sit down at the instrument and play from memory. You know, there are people who can type blindly without looking at the keyboard, and that's how I learned to play. I don't need notes. I have a good musical memory. If it weren't for that, I'd be long gone by now." The man was silent, as if realizing that he had spoken. His lips were tightly pressed together, and his cheekbones were set. Monica remained silent, afraid to break the moment of candor, and waiting for Sebastian to continue his confession, and she was not mistaken. "I had a fiancé." He grinned bitterly. "We dated for a long time, and then I decided to propose to her. I don't know what always stopped me from taking that step. Maybe the sixth sense? He grinned again. It warned you of trouble. She was very pretty. She liked attention from men, dressed flashy, bright, even provocative. I had to rescue her from her obsessive admirers. I'd even asked her to dress more modestly, but she laughed at me, saying that I am possessive, and she wants to stand out from the crowd, that she will still have time to play a modest woman mystery when there will be children. She wouldn't listen to anything, preferring to show everything that nature had bestowed on her. Did you love her very much? Madly, even with her antics. The wedding preparations were in full swing. We were both over the moon and looking forward to it. Why didn't I insist that night that she change her outfit? He stopped talking again. What happened? Monica asked. That night we left the restaurant and some thugs followed us. My fiancée took the liberty of flirting with them, she always did. She liked to drive men crazy. She enjoyed feeling power over them. Wasn't your attention enough for her? She liked to tickle my nerves. He smiled wryly, said it made me more passionate. And what happened next? Random admirers decided they could invite her to continue the evening. I naturally tried to explain to them that they had misunderstood her behavior and she wasn't going anywhere with them. They were drunk, of course. Yes, a fight ensued. While I was dealing with two of them, the third one came up behind me and hit me on the head with something heavy. I woke up in the hospital in total darkness. The doctors were hopeful at first that my eyesight would return. I waited for a month, but alas, no miracle. The diagnosis was total blindness. What about your fiancée? Fiancée? She left me the day she heard the doctor's verdict. Disabled, she didn't need me anymore. I had to quit my job. I didn't know where to put myself. All the doors closed in front of me. They offered only low-paid positions. I did not accept. I needed money for rehabilitation and treatment. All my searches were in vain. And that's when you took the job at this cafe? Yes, I heard one of the customers playing a tune, sat down at the instrument and played. The owner offered me a job, so I took it. The pay is good, and sometimes the customers tip well. I like what I do. Sebastian and Monica stopped by a street lamp that lit their faces well. But lately, I've been flying instead of going to work. The man confessed, looking at the girl point blank, as he had when they first met. It even seemed to her that he could see her. I am happy that you once accidentally heard me play. I think I was playing especially for you, so that my music would lead you to me. He touched his hand to the mask, a look of bewilderment on his face. Sebastian carefully removed it. Don't, Monica protested. You won't like what's under the mask, but the man took her face in his hands and kissed her lightly, then ran his hand over her skin, felt the scars, and turned pale. I knew I would disgust you. Tears showed in the girl's eyes. One rolled down her mangled cheek. No, he ran his thumb gently over her skin, wiping away the tears. I don't know what happened to you. I can't see your face, but I can feel your soul. Remember I said that nature takes one thing from a man and gives him another. I fell in love with you like a boy the first minute I heard your voice, and then I realized that you are an amazingly delicate and vulnerable person, and as lonely as I am. Yes, I lost my sight, but in return I received a real gift from God to meet you, and now I can't imagine life without you. Do you believe me? Sebastian looked at her without pity, without fear. In his eyes there was only love. He pressed her to him and kissed her, and she reciprocated. Can you hear the music in my heart? Yes. Barely audible, Monica whispered. She was unusually excited by the kiss. It seemed to her that for a moment they were both lifted off the ground. So strong, so vivid was their mutual feeling. My heart is singing for you, only you will hear it. I couldn't even imagine that one could fall in love like this. Now there is something to live for. I'm happy, and I'm happy. They stood hugging each other for a long time. Monica hid her face on his chest, feeling protected. They felt good together. They had each other now. Son, Barbara announced joyfully, I've found you a bride. It's a great match. I've always dreamed of such a daughter-in-law. Mom, Charles wrinkled his nose. He was tired of the brides his mother offered him. I'm not getting married yet. Why not? Are you still hung up on that Monica? I thought you were done with your ugly fiancé? Don't start, Mom. The man wrinkled his nose. I've turned over a new leaf in my life. Good for you. Tomorrow Kelly has agreed to come and visit us. You'll see she'll be a wonderful wife to you. You'd be kind enough to be hospitable. I hope you'll listen to what I have to say. Take a good look at her. You know Mom never gives you bad advice. The next evening, a rich table was set in anticipation of the guest. Go open the door, Mother said when she heard the bell ring. Hello. On the threshold stood a gorgeous blonde with high, firm breasts. Blue eyes looked appraising. Plump lips opened invitingly in anticipation of a kiss. Hello. A dumbfounded Charles backed away, letting the beauty into the apartment. Kelly, Barbara sang. We've been waiting for you. Come in, darling. Ignoring the oath, he had forgotten how to court women. Have a seat at the table. Charles, she looked sternly at her son. Pour us each a glass of wine. I suggest we drink to the meeting. The evening flew by. The young woman was talkative and well-read. Charles kept his eyes on her. Only sometimes a shadow came over his face when the image of Monica involuntarily appeared in his memory. Kelly was the complete opposite of her. She had none of Monica's modesty, refinement, or malleability. He pondered, looking at the girl. But she's so damn attractive and uninhibited, and I like that. Well, what do you say, son? Cleaning up the table, Barbara asked. I told you that she is a very nice girl, not like that bride of yours, who is not ashamed to go out with her. And she's beautiful, smart, and can hold a conversation. You couldn't find a better wife. Why don't you say something? I noticed right away that you had your eye on her. I won't deny the obvious, Charles sighed. I liked her. Good. My mother rejoiced. Don't delay, meet her again, and then propose. Don't hesitate. You're not a boy anymore. You are both people established, and there and soon have children. She sobbed. Will I really live to see my grandchildren? Finally, my heart will calm down. You've made me happy, son. You've made me happy. 3 months later, Kelly was wearing a wedding ring on her ring finger. Barbara loved her daughter-in-law. Look at the cream Kelly gave me, son, she bragged. Her face was as soft as a baby's. Charles, she was indignant after a while. Kelly complains that you don't want to go on vacation with her, says you don't pay any attention to her. I'd love to go, sarcastically responded to the mother's remark, the man. If your Kelly would learn to save a little, and then I do not have time to earn money, and she lets them go for all sorts of nonsense. You two go together. I see you two are getting along well. I'm grateful. Your wife makes your home cozy, and you're always dissatisfied with her. Look how nice your place is now. She's the only thing that makes you look like a decent man. What do you miss? She complained about me. No, really? I can see how you feel about her. Don't you realize your coldness hurts your wife? Don't interfere in our relationship. The man lost his temper. We'll work it out ourselves. Son, how do you talk to your mother? I'm sorry, Mom, but you're always telling me how to live my life. I'm not a little boy anymore. This is my family and my wife. We'll work out our own problems. Frustrated, Charles came home. What's your problem? He went off on his wife. I work like an ox so that you can visit beauty salons and expensive clothes stores, and you complain to your mother that I don't pay enough attention to you. Why don't you tell her why I'm hardly ever home? Why do you resent me, dear? Kelly spoke peacefully, kissing her husband. He pushed her away. You? How rude are you? Nothing terrible happened, just to talk about the fact that you are rarely at home. Think, offended. You don't know why I've been missing work. Because I don't have time to rest. I have to work and work to pay your endless bills, your massages, your manicures. Damn them all. You didn't spare any money for me. The woman was ready to use her main weapon, tears. When I persuaded you to marry you, said you loved you, gave you gifts, and swore fidelity. Yes, I thought I was in love with you. But now I realize I made a big mistake. I rushed into marriage so my mom wouldn't bother me anymore. It's her choice. You two are both bugging me. You've drunk all my blood. You can't get enough. Oh, is that how you talk? Kelly cried. So get out of the house. I'd rather sleep at work than live under the same roof with a hysteric like you. Go away, she shouted after him. Nobody's going to cry. Charles ran out of the house, slamming the door in his heart. He walked through town thinking, why did I listen to my mother? I don't love my wife. I'm a miserable man. At least I can be honest with myself. I still love Monica. I can't forget her. Where is she now? Since that memorable day when I lost sight of her, so much water has passed. Her phone is silent. What about her? How's she doing? I'm still tormented by the guilt I feel for her. He walked on, unable to see anyone around him. Suddenly, Charles stopped, listened. What the hell? A long-forgotten warm feeling stirred in his heart, remembering something dear, native. Who is it singing? The man rushed to the sound of the marvelous voice, afraid that now the song would fall silent and he would not be able to find the singer. Charles literally ran into the cafe and froze. Monica was standing at the microphone. Her face was hidden by a mask, but her voice, her figure, he would have recognized her even in the crowd. The patrons applauded as the last sounds of music died down. Monica. Charles stepped toward his former lover. I was looking for you, but I didn't expect to find you here. Your voice brought me here. Hello, Charles. The woman spoke calmly. Why were you looking for me? I missed you. Have you forgotten me? Even if I wanted to forget, I couldn't. She grinned. My face reminds me of you every morning and evening. The rest of the time, I hide behind a mask and am quite content with my life. Why did you come here? You have the right to reproach me. I admit I was mean to you then, but it's never too late to make things right. I want you to come back to me. I've changed, but I still love you. Please, I'm sorry. Can we start over? It's too late. I've changed too. I've learned to see the falseness in people. Have you forgotten how good we were together? I can't live without you. Can't live without you so much that you got married. She nodded at her wedding ring. This marriage means nothing to me. He hurriedly took off the ring and carefully put it in his pocket. I still remember our meetings, our kisses. I don't love Kelly, but I love my husband, and I'm not going to change a thing. If you'd come back when I needed you most, when I didn't want to live, then we could have been happy again, but you chickened out, hid under your mom's skirt. Yes, I made a cruel mistake, I admit it, but you have to understand me. I was scared. Forgive me, I was a fool. I didn't realize what a treasure I'd lost. Only now I realize how much you meant to me. You have the right to hate me, I'll bear it. Just don't send me away. I forgave you long ago." Monica looked at her former lover with pity. "And I don't hate you. Strangely enough, I'm even grateful because the ordeal has made me strong. Then give me a chance, please. We can try to be happy." "I am already happy," answered Monica. "I have a caring husband, and we are expecting a child." Charles only now noticed the rounded belly of his former lover. He stood silently and watched as Monica returned to the microphone. A melody played, and the woman sang. The man saw how lovingly she looked at the musician and realized that he had lost her forever. Charles turned around and walked down the street. He was returning to his home, and a song about love, loyalty, and happiness gained was singing after him.
Subscribe and click the bell. Behind this psychiatric clinic in the city, and in general in the region, have long been bad rumors, like what happens in horror movies, and Michael had certainly heard about it. And when his mother and grandmother found out that he is an excellent student, and a graduate of medical school goes there to work as an orderly, one of them waved his hands. "Grandson, you're the only man left in the family. Don't go there. Michael, you know I'm from an ancient noble family. I may not have 1 million, but I'll find the money to pay for your internship abroad." "Grandma, what money? What abroad? I have to make my own way, just like my grandfather." And the boy nodded his head at the portrait of his grandfather hanging on the wall. And indeed, Michael had someone to look up to. His grandfather was a famous surgeon, and his father, who died in Afghanistan, blew himself up on a mine, saving the military. And so he decided to become a doctor, but not a surgeon like his grandfather and father, but a psychiatrist. Why psychiatry? My mother joked in the first year of school, "But Mom, if the body my grandfather and father studied, so to speak, in detail, then psychiatry is a real field for research, a Klondike." Yes, you're a researcher. I hope. Psychiatry isn't contagious. Oh, Mom, don't worry. It's not like it's the flu or anything. Maybe I can find my own unique method of therapy for mentally ill patients. Yeah, and bring people like Chikatilo back into society. "So Adriana, please don't bring it up," said the grandmother, stepping in for her grandson. The case of this serial maniac was then on the rumor, and the whole country was following him. But the mother reacted too painfully to her. Michael understood her because her own sister Adriana, and his own aunt, the only close person, killed by an unknown assailant, and the culprit was never found. The investigator then said that it could be a maniac, but now in many women saw negative elements of society, especially if they stayed in such institutions as their own city institution for the mentally ill. "Mom, you are an adult, and you understand that it is better to treat such people, recognize them as sane, and then pass a sentence, than to spend money on them to keep them in such houses as ours for years. And you're still defending him." The mother was outraged, but she knew her son's temper. "Michael, you're just like your father, just as stubborn. All right, but don't complain to me about anything. Adriana, don't worry. My grandson will complain to his legal grandmother." "You mean me?" Betty gently ruffled the thick red curls of his favorite grandson. "Grandma, but I'm not a boy anymore. Not a boy, but not yet a husband. So listen to your mother, but also to me sometimes." So they lived in the old Tsar's house, where they had a 5-room apartment with its own fireplace and a large library, luxurious balconies, which still kept traces of the old stucco. This house was in the very center of the city, stood on a small hill, and was considered one of the elite in the city. For it, even many rich men and millionaires, even one criminal authority, gave crazy money for the family to sell their apartment. "No way," said Betty's grandmother, who was considered the head of the family and whose word was final. "This apartment will serve my great-grandchildren and great-great-grandchildren." So just stop asking me stupid questions like if I'd want to sell the apartment and leave me alone. That's all she said a few years ago to a city criminal mastermind. And strangely enough, but after that they really didn't bother them anymore. They didn't even start organizing invasion raids, as it often happened in those times. That's how they lived. Michael, dreaming of becoming a famous psychiatrist, and his mother and grandmother, whom he madly loved and idolized. No, there were girls in his life, and even an older woman, but he loved few. Yes, there was a crush, even a feeling like love, but nothing serious. He went on studying, falling in love, dating. Now he was interning at a psychiatric clinic in their town. Yes, they had talked the most horrible and heartbreaking, up to the fact that their orderlies and doctors have fun with mentally ill beauty. But no one could prove it. What do you want me to do? Michael asked his old friend Benjamin, who told him all this. I really have to go over the border, as my grandmother says. But you know, you'd have to sell the last of it. And what would I do in that prosperous Europe? And you realize their methods and ours are probably incompatible. So that's where it stands. I'm already used to the realities of our medicine and psychiatry, in particular, as well as methods of therapy. What's a handful of pills? I'd rather have a shot in the vein, or even for some freaks in general. Orbital lobotomy. You're a bloodthirsty Benjamin. I'm way ahead of you. Aha. That's why I went into dentistry, so I could yank my patient's teeth with a vengeance. And the guy was soon making a grimace that made them both laugh. A healthy laugh. Crooked faces like first graders. It was normal. In their practice, doctors, they are such and black humor that help them endure the specifics and difficulties of the job. Often the lack of weekends when there is no one on shifts. And you do all the work for 3 people so you cannot die long, or even go crazy and become like his future charges patients in a psychiatric clinic. Yeah, Ethan, I probably should have chosen dentistry like you, and my grandmother insisted that my senior year I choose dentistry or gynecology. But that's just not my thing, you know. I see, Michael. Then you'll have to go to me for dental care and one of our girls for gynecology. I'll give you a headache. All right, buddy, I gotta go home. I gotta get ready for my first day of private dentistry tomorrow. I'm on the phone for now. Michael nodded, and after shaking hands, they parted ways. He had to go to his mental hospital tomorrow. Then, it was worth it to come home early, to pack a bag, and for once, not to sit in front of the TV until night, to sleep. Already at home he had dinner and brewed himself a fragrant tea. Michael sat down at the computer, an old computer brought from Europe, but still capable of much computer brought to him under the order from a friend of his grandmother for his birthday. When Michael was in his 2nd year of study, and the guy's joy was unbounded. Grandma, this is a real treasure. Luckily, the guy had no limit. And now he sat down at the computer, started the system, and connected the internet. Yeah, the internet is power. The ability to communicate with the world, to learn a lot. And now he decided to keep his own electronic diary of his internship at work, including everything he saw and heard, what methods were used, and what the doctors achieved. Maybe I'll even write a dissertation based on this diary. Not many secrets this asylum hides. Is this your institution for the mentally ill? Grandma came into the room and put a tray with a huge tea and sweet spoons on the table. Yes, Grandma, I'm thinking of keeping a diary. Maybe I'll see something interesting, and there are strange things going on in your almshouse. Grandma, do you know something? Tell me, please. I know something. Betty sat down on her grandson's bed and thought about it. That sometimes I see girls and young women in weird outfits, but they also have ribbons in their hair. Grandma, well, the outfits are ordinary, hospital outfits. Maybe some suits came from humanitarian aid. And the ribbons? Maybe one of the nurses got sick. No, grandson, something else. Outfits. Grandma thought for a moment, and then said, you know, like in adult movies, a dress, short stockings, and netting. Somehow the guy raised an eyebrow in surprise. Strangely, he had passed by this place many times, but he hadn't really paid attention to the patients. His grandmother, on the other hand, did. She looked at her grandson carefully and then continued. And about the ribbons, you know, they're weird too. How can I explain it to you? Well, what caught your attention? Just tell me the first thing you noticed. The guy felt like a detective, but he was already wondering what his astute grandmother had seen. Betty pressed her lips together and then gave out. They're red with glitter. So what? Grandma, it's bright and beautiful. I guess crazy people like that. I don't know about that. You know, in my time, so to speak, pre-revolutionary ribbons like this were stuffed in the hair of girls of easy virtue in brothels. And here, they'd walk around like that, and they'd be highlighted with ribbons, so to speak. It's not human. You shouldn't make the poor and disadvantaged look like the poor and disadvantaged. Ugh. And also such ribbons flew hair only young and beautiful. Grandma, you're my Agatha Christie. Really, how many times have I walked by and just not paid attention? It's impossible not to pay attention to such an inferential outfit. All right. Well, I take what you said, and I'll pay attention. Maybe I'll uncover some kind of world conspiracy. And the guy smiled his beautiful smile, but he didn't know how close he was to the truth. This hospital was a place for the mildly insane. As the doctors would say, those who didn't require enhanced confinement. That's why the patients could walk by themselves in the equipped yard of the institution, awarded with a fence. But the guy would learn about it later, when he would encounter the most horrible and disgusting thing that could happen in his professional life. Monday turned out to be surprisingly sunny and similar, especially after a night of threatening rain and rain that walled the city. Yes, Michael thought. Waking up in the night and looking out the window to rain like that could wash away the whole city and my psychotic charges with it. But the morning was clear and sunny, and there was practically nothing left from the traces of rain, except for broken branches and leaves on the ground. Yeah, it's a lot of work for a janitor, the boy said aloud. That's right, said the janitor of the Sheck grandmother Sophia, who has been cleaning the yard. Since 5 o'clock, she's already cleaned so much, and still waving and waving the broom. Good luck to you. And the guy, throwing his backpack on his shoulder, went to his new place of practice. On the approach to the psychiatric clinic, the guy decided to walk around it a bit, on the other side, so that he could see the place where their patients usually strolled, and to pay attention to what his grandmother was talking about yesterday. Indeed, there were several girls walking in the courtyard, dressed in very revealing outfits with brightly colored ribbons in their hair. But the strangest thing was not only the orderlies, but also the head doctor and his 2 deputies were standing aside. They looked at their charges and smilingly discussed something. And the head doctor was looking at Kathy, a new patient who had been brought in a few days ago, a victim of hypnosis, or rather a failed experiment of a psychopath. A doctor who practiced his trance technique on her. Yeah, the guy thought. Such things happen in the practice of doctors. As the grief doctor told the law enforcers, this method he tried to muffle her inner hunger. What kind of hunger? One of the investigators asked the doctor. Sexual hunger. She was just obsessed with men, always wanting sex. I tried to bring her back to a normal life, although so far I had to cure her with this method by my refinement, to cure her. Or maybe it was just you decorating her like that. I was saving her from herself. The doctor was sure he was doing good. But, as Michael thought to himself, having heard the girl's story and the doctor's testimony, he was no less crazy than his victim, whom he had turned into a vegetable. Yes, thought the new orderly from one prison, or rather office, psycho, experimenter to the clinic. Or rather, a study, a psycho, an experimenter in a clinic where she was looked upon as a subject of pleasures and possible molestation. Well, if you've got your eye on her, I'm gonna have to keep an eye on you, Kathy. Now I realize my grandmother was right about something. You don't dress patients like that. This isn't a catwalk, it's a clinic. Michael took out a pack of cigarettes and smoked, even though he'd only dabbled before. As his downstairs neighbor, Uncle Benjamin, who'd been in the camps for years, would say, he was translating product, also a colorful type. The guy remembered about him. But in reality, as he was an Urka and a political prisoner in the past owned such a 3-room apartment. Michael even once asked him jokingly, who will get your chambers and jacuzzi? To which he replied, squint your eyes at him. Don't be jealous. I won this house with my teeth. And the neighbor showed his not too healthy strong teeth. Don't look at my teeth. I can still do a lot. And the apartment is my mother's inheritance, not the state's. Believe me. Uncle Benjamin, but you don't have children. Who told you I don't? I had a daughter, but she died in childbirth. So there's only one beloved grandson. But why doesn't he visit you? Where is he? Do you even know? Because he lives abroad. My daughter married an Arab. She fell in love and went to the Emirates. To tell the truth, she lived like a cheese in butter. I wouldn't give her that. But I guess you have to pay for everything. And I guess she paid the price when she gave birth. I'm sorry, Uncle Benjamin, I really didn't know. Hold on. There's a grandson. Have you even seen him? Yes, he came to my daughter's funeral. To her grave, to be exact. She converted to Islam and was buried on the day she died. So I only got the grave. I'm sorry. You're welcome. My grandson's growing up and my daughter's husband calls me and shows me his grandson via video link. He keeps asking me to come over, but I can't leave the house. Yes, and here I am among neighbors as my own and smiling through tears. Neighbor went to his apartment. Michael stood smoking under the fence net and did not understand why he remembered him. But fate would once again bring the neighbors together in this case, albeit in a very unusual way. And now Michael stood smoking, looking, and could not make a step and continue his way. Maybe throw it to hell under his nose, said the guy. And then he almost jumped. On his shoulder lay the hand of William, the lead doctor, clinic, and supervisor of Michael's practice, who had seen the guy get off at the bus stop, how he had smoked, stopping under an old lime tree. And as he watched a group of paramedics walking in the courtyard of patients of doctors, laughing them among themselves, probably at some oily joke. Who are you gonna leave? Certainly not the practice at our fun and games place, but I think you're overdoing it on the fun and games. No, it's definitely that kind of black doctor humor. It is so, sort of so humor. The doctor smiled and took his ward under his arm and led him towards the psychiatric hospital, slowly but surely moving him towards the horrors that were going on inside its walls. The doctor had already made the decision to either involve Michael in his games or simply deprive him of his sanity if he did not agree to participate. Why him? It's simple. Michael is a new man in their collective one not so long ago, by chance, and he's strong for his age, plus handsome. Here is such a boy handsome, which is exactly suitable for filming spicy movies. Already in the clinic, the head doctor Noah and William took him through all the buildings, floors, and wards. Yes, the views are not the best, and emotions are not the brightest. Why should he be surprised, though? He knew where he was going. Michael was tormented by his grandmother's reasoning, but he knew if he asked that question directly, he'd be laughed at. But at the most, he'd get suspended. And the guy would never find out. Noah asked Michael over tea at the resident. There are all sorts of rumors about this clinic, in particular, mystical rumors. What do you have to say about that? Oh, Michael, you're a medical student, but you talk like a philology student who wants folklore. Or are you afraid of the ghost of the old empress or mother? The mother superior who drowned a truck in our pond at night. There's even a pond here. The boy's amazement was unparalleled. How long has he lived here in this town? I knew of clinics in the neighborhood, but the fact that there's also a pond. Remember the old movie about the Three Musketeers? Well, we have a lively pond just like that. It was organized by the previous head doctor. His wife worked as a landscape designer. So they set it up. We have a lily pond here. It's beautiful. There were fish swimming in it, but I guess our climate didn't suit them. They died out over the winter. But our patients don't care whether they're fish or lilies. And Ethan, an orderly with huge fists and a face resembling a tango arena, laughed as Michael's laughter made him shudder, and the doctors simply did not pay attention to him. And why do they tolerate such people in the clinic? Although on the other hand, there are some violent people who can't be subdued without physical force. Yeah, but Ethan's rudeness sometimes got to Michael, as did the thought of having to work with someone like that. Ethan, you show Michael to your office, where he can change his clothes, leave his things in the lockers and all that. He's only here for a couple months, so to speak, a couple months internship. But it's still got to be determined. Ethan nodded his head and waved his huge fist at Michael. Michael didn't show his displeasure. Let it be. A couple of months could be tolerated. And then he was promised to be taken to the second city as a staff psychiatrist, so he didn't worry about it too much. Michael obediently went down to the basement with Ethan and went to the very back of the clinic. Here, the orderlies had set up a room for a locker room and a kind of sports corner where you can hit a punching bag and play chess and dominoes. Don't be shy. Michael, take any locker that's not open. We have a lot of open seats right now, so let's get settled in. Why do so few people want to work at the clinic? Michael started asking questions from afar. I mean, who wants to hang out with a psycho? A lot of people think of it as a contagion. Being a psycho too. I just don't know any other job. Although at one time, just like you, I studied medicine. What did you study for? An orderly, that's what I studied. And my uncle put me to work here. My uncle. He's Noah. You've seen him. He's our chief of medicine. Good acquaintances, the boy thought, but he didn't say anything. Michael changed his clothes and began to get ready for his shift. The shift went relatively smoothly, and the next morning, the guy threw his backpack on his shoulders and left the clinic building. The sun was shining brightly, and there was nothing to portend any trouble, and all the things he had changed his mind about yesterday. Michael, it seemed like a fairy tale or fantasy. But really, what kind of fairy tales are fairy tales? We live in our developed world with computers, cameras on every corner. Even if there was something going on here, it would have been made public a long time ago. Michael, good morning. William called out to the guy and extended his hand to greet him and got straight to the point. How was your shift? Smoke. I don't smoke. Thank you. Yesterday it was just a dalliance, but the shift. Thank you. Everything went smoothly. William, can I make a personal request if I'm not interrupting something more important? Sure. Yes, of course. Anything I can do. Could you show me that pond you told me about yesterday? Wow. I guess you got caught up in the story last night. Come on. It's in the backyard. I'll show you around. I gotta be honest, you can't see it from the street. It took me a while to find it myself. It's so hidden, it's creepy. Is this place really inhabited? The center of Izhevsk. The doctor looked at him with a slight chuckle and said nothing, but waved his hand and led him deep into the park area of the hospital. Yeah, it's a bit of a wilderness, and that the most strange noise of cars from the street was not heard, although the clinic itself was located at the crossroads of quite busy central city roads. How quiet is it? And strangely enough, you can't hear much traffic from the road. Yes, you're right, Michael. You've noticed it's quiet. And here's the twig itself, and the head doctor spread the branches with his hands and let the boy go ahead. It's beautiful. Before Michael opened the pond, laid out of stones behind burned black lilies, around which willows grew. And what was the most amazing thing? There were several statues in antique style of girls, hunting or carrying jugs on their shoulders. He had not seen such statues for a long time. Oh, it's beautiful. And notice the angle and the shot. You could even make a movie. What kind of horror movie have you seen in our cellars? There's no such thing as a cellar. Why? There are some. Yes, imagine that. And they lead to the local Cathedral of the Transfiguration, which is across the street from us. Are these cellars or cellars? I don't know. They lead to the monastery, and they say the monks at our clinic have the right people. And all because it wouldn't occur to anyone to look for a healthy person in a mental institution. Then there's been some kind of collapse in some places. Now these passages are impassable. That's for sure. No one's gonna come in here willingly. And then he noticed on the opposite bank the figure of a girl in a racy outfit. Kathy, he remembered her, because she had been brought here on the day when he had come to see the head doctor and applied for an internship at this clinic. The girl herself was not in the state she was in at the time. She was screaming at the doctors that the psychiatrist wanted to kill her. She's hearing voices and everything. That Kathy suffers from inner voices and a hypertrophied sex drive. Well, that's what her previous doctor said. Who knows? So far, the girl hasn't said a word. Why is she dressed like that? Short dress, fishnet stockings, ribbon in her hair. You know, Michael, it's one of my methods of letting the patient choose what they want. And by the way, where'd you get that outfit? That's a good question. Like many theatrical costumes, it was left to us by a theater. Exactly the theater. The director was jailed for some dark deeds, he and his wife. And the actors just ran away. And since the theater was near us, it's not a waste. And they were all dressed like royalty. Yes, imagining you as Henry Valois or Peter the Great. Michael, you're joking. But by the way, we had a wonderful carnival night here on New Year's Eve. And there was even a story about us in the paper. I hope it wasn't in a good context that a disguised Napoleon was walking around town claiming to be the real chief medical officer. No, we're all understanding people with a sense of humor. So we just hung around the Christmas tree. That one over there, by the way, by the entrance. And you know, people even took pictures with us on New Year's Eve. Yeah, that was fun. Thank you for the tour. I'm gonna go home and get some sleep. Thursday again for 24 hours. Michael, don't try too hard. You can't do all the work. You're a young guy. I nodded my head. But I thought to myself, no, I'm going to get you out of this. I think you're hiding something. Dear head doctor, but you don't need to know that. I had dinner tonight and sat down at the computer. Michael quickly made the first entries in his diary and then began to look for information about the local clinic. And indeed, there was a lot of information about it. Strangely enough, there was a lot of information about it, and with a very negative connotation. Murders, suicides, and strange deaths of both patients and doctors. Yes, there was a lot to work on and a lot to find out. But it was Kathy that bothered him the most. And he thought to himself, why not keep a sneaky eye on her room? The girl herself. Not without reason the head doctor was looking at her with such olive eyes. Grandma, the boy called out to his grandmother. Why did you shop like that? You won't let me watch my favorite TV show. What did you want? Grandma, I saw a girl at the clinic today. She was a victim of an incompetent hypnotist and suffered as a result. But that's not the point. She was wearing the outfit you mentioned, short dress, stockings, and a sash. Not surprising. One of your executives must have had their eye on her. I mean, she's new. She's a young girl too. I take it. So you're going to steal her? No, Grandma, I just want to keep an eye on her room. It's on the first floor, so it won't be a problem. To do anything, you have to have proof. That's what I'm required to do. Really, Michael, I'm old. I'm not going to play Sherlock Holmes with you. I'm more of a Mrs. Hudson. Grandma, that's not what I mean. Just cover for me in front of Mom. I'm gonna go over to the clinic tonight, stake out the windows, so to speak. I found a military A in Grandpa's closet. Okay, if anything, I'll tell Mom you're home already asleep. She's on call today anyway, so she won't be home. But you're my grandson, please. Don't get into any trouble. Okay. Michael nodded his head and poked the old lady on the cheek. He went back to his computer. What's going on at the clinic? How was your shift? The old woman was still interested in how true or not the rumors were. The rumors about the asylum. Yeah, Grandma. It's okay. I told you it was nothing like that. No, it's not. Our head doctor showed me the old pond on the grounds today, the one with the black lilies. Grandma didn't tell me about it. I went there and saw it because the wife of the former head doctor was my friend, and the pond itself is her creation. But the doctor didn't tell you that in the same pond they found the wife of the former one drowned. The guy shook his head, looked at his grandmother in surprise, but there's knee-deep water, and that's it. And this is the strangest thing. Her body was lying with her head in the water. She was submerged in the water, but her arms and legs were lying flat along her torso. They took a sturdy, adequate soldier and put her face down. That's all. And then they found water from the pond in his lungs. No signs of violence on the body. If that's what you're asking, it's odd that she came in, lay down, and swallowed the water to death. Drowned of her own volition. The guy was being sarcastic, but looking at the expression on his grandmother's face, he immediately faltered. Betty did not tolerate unnecessary words and jokes, and therefore immediately warned her grandson. Yes, Michael, death is strange. But if she did it herself, then she had a reason. And maybe even her own husband is the same as your current boss's overbearing. There's nothing to cure them. Maybe, under the old doctor, he and his brothers also had fun with innocent girls. And his wife found out and drowned them both. So, what of it? Or maybe who drowned them? But really, she won't become a ghost of a ghost, will she? Maybe she wouldn't. But believe me, there's something scary going on out there. And I'll tell you honestly, this new girl isn't worth the danger she's bringing upon herself. Trust me. The brotherhood of doctors, it's like that. Everyone protects each other. And even if they do something to her, that you can get to the bottom of it. But understand, a doctor will not testify against a doctor. So get on your nerves and leave her in there. At least I'll get her out and save her that way. All right. Michael, don't yell. I hear you. I accept your position. But I'm trying to warn you. You're putting yourself in a lot of danger. I understand all that. That's why I'm telling you where I'm going and what I intend to do. Betty nodded and stood up, heading for the door. She was worried about her grandson, but she realized she couldn't keep the young and hot guy away. So the woman simply stood on the doorstep and turned and said to Michael, "What if you take Uncle Benjamin, our neighbor from the second floor, to help you? He's old, but he's lean. And with his criminal record, he'd be a big help. I'll think about it. But it's not a bad idea. Although I'll tell you right away, I'll have to see for myself, do some recon, and then I'll tell them what's going on. Even if I go to him now, what can I say? Uncle Benjamin is there in the clinic raping women and many other things. And he'll tell me. Prove it. Just words. And I don't really believe it all myself. Just because a place is weird and old doesn't mean you can't ring all the bells. Yeah, there's too many girls. There's too many crazy people. And there's too many masquerades. But it's all right." And the grandmother left the room, closing the door a little behind her. Michael leaned back in his chair and thought for a moment. Uncle Benjamin is a criminal, but the grandmother is right. His experience and his nose for crime might help him. And an extra set of hands and eyes can always help. But first, you have to go and see for yourself and then you can go to your neighbor. All right, let's get ready. Michael threw a flashlight and a bottle of water into his backpack. Binoculars with good German optics can take a camera. What for? Basically, there's a cell phone. You can take video and photos with it. Okay, that's fine for the first time. Anyway, I'm not going to go in there. And throwing it on his shoulders, Michael went out into the corridor and began to study. The sounds Betty came out of his room and looked at his offspring carefully. You're coming. Yes, Grandma. Don't worry. I've got the phone, but don't call. I'll call you if I need to. In the meantime, lock it up. I think I'll be on the train in a couple of hours. 20 minutes to get there. An hour and a half and back. 20 minutes. So look, it'll be 3 hours. All right. Grandson, but please be careful. If anything happens to me, your mother will rip my head off. Michael smiled at his favorite person and kissed her. He went outside. It was getting dark. What's so surprising? After work he washed up, then ate and slept, and now full of strength can and observe. The guy smiled, thought to himself that he should have gone not to the doctor, but probably to the investigators. Here is a confirmation of his words. A patrol car passed by and lit up the road with flashing beacons, but it alarmed the guy. No, not the car itself, not the flashing lights. It was the fact that the policeman stopped it around the corner and got out quietly, covering the door. They slammed it shut, as usual, quietly slipped through the hole in the fence of the psychiatric clinic, and went just as quietly, whispering among themselves. Wow. The cops are also in business, and the young medic's bewilderment had no limit. Did these columns, as his grandmother would say, come here too? Wow. Now, it's not just medical malpractice anymore. It's a group of gangs. And that's what he's encountered in practice. Come on. Maybe he just made a mistake, and the police came here on a signal, so to speak, to check what's going on here. But still, these two were acting weird, uncharacteristic. Michael slowly went in the direction of the secret eye. In the fence, jumped in the chassis, hiding behind the dense vegetation, and abundantly growing along this fence. That was a plus right now, and it wasn't exactly a starry night. So the guy slowly crept toward the ominous, overhanging park clinic. This 3-story old pre-revolutionary building was an eyesore in the city. It was going to be demolished long ago, moving the facility to the outskirts. But apparently, it wasn't worth it for the high-ranking officials to go there in search of hidden pleasures. Come on, come in here, quietly said one policeman, and let the other one inside. The basement. Wow, they got the basement entrance open. I wonder who's on shift today. An old orderly with a long history of alcohol abuse, or lying. Another one of the orderlies with a huge fist. When Michael himself asked about the door to the basement and the padlock, the head doctor secretly smiled and said, "This is the entrance to our basement paradise. And is it like growing marijuana there?" Michael decided to make a joke, but I guess the joke didn't work. The doctor looked at him sideways and said it wasn't pot. It was something else, but it's too early for him to know. Everything will show and tell later. And now they just let outsiders into this forbidden paradise. Maybe they are part-time. Security guards? Michael chuckled under his nose and began to approach the clinic building even more quietly. The windows of the wards on the first floor glowed with a dim light. It was the way the duty lights burned. And the light itself was enough to see what was going on in the wards. The guy intuitively approached the window of the room of the new patient, Kathy, and from surprise, almost dumbfounded on the spot. Guy saw her sitting on the bed, dressed in a short school drill dress and with bows in her hair. Yeah, the guy almost whistled in surprise. And apparently, the girl heard his exclamation and looked out the window. Michael intercepted her gaze for a second. He was devastated. Apparently, she'd been pre-sedated with sedatives. But at the same time, there was a silent plea for help. But then, Liam and the doctor in charge entered the room, and the boy sat down instantly so as not to be seen. Michael sat under the window and listened intently to what was going on in the room itself. He heard the footsteps of two men and the creaking of a bed. Then the words of the head doctor. "Hello, Kathy. You're already dressed as well as you can be. Now let's go down to the basement with me and Liam. You'll find a lot of interesting things there." The basement where the two policemen went. Apparently, they had some sort of organized pleasure nook down there. And that's where they took her, drugged her with psychotropics. But what to do? The guy quietly sank to the ground and put his hands around his head. What to do? What to do? And then the front door creaked and Michael squeezed into the ground. 3 men came out of them and headed towards the basement. Good night was dark, and the yard of the clinic was not illuminated. Therefore, he simply was not noticed. But only the girl turned back, looked in his direction, and cried. Tears rolled silently down her face. Michael heard Noah begin to quietly soothe the girl and told the orderly, "Liam at the school, to her in the basement for another dose of sedative. We didn't want her to wake up at the right moment." And the chief of police wasn't happy with his new doll. "Yeah, sure, Noah. Let's get her in and give her a quick shot." And the trio began to make their way down to the basement. Michael had one single desire: to break into the basement and snatch Kathy out of the hands of doctors and cops. But he realized how impossible that would be. No, he was not intimidated by the company, the doctors and the cops, to do their dark deeds. But he realized they'd just smash him there. And that would be it. And no one will know where his grave is. Call the militia. What will he say there? The head doctor and a policeman raping a mentally ill patient won't believe him. And even if they do, what's next? But the brigade will arrive on a call. And what? Nothing. If the police come to such costume parties, it means that the management is aware of it, and at least the case will be closed. At the most, they can either kill him in the same basement and bury him here or put him in jail for something. I mean, even if it's for abusing Kathy. So think, Michael, think. Maybe you're imagining things. Yeah. And the cops are here for nothing. But at that very moment, the basement door opened and a policeman came running out. "Vasia," he shouted, "I've been away for a couple of hours. There's an emergency at the police station, but I'll be back later. Leave me that girl for later." And the policeman rushed to the car. The guy heard the engine roar and the tires skid across the sand. But the strangest thing was that from the cellar no one answered him, and no one had ever closed the door. It wasn't locked. It's called come in. Whoever wants in and whoever wants out. Whoever wants in and whoever wants out. Michael rushed to the cellars and started to go down the stairs, listening to every sound. But he heard nothing, neither footsteps nor any other sounds. There were supposed to be at least 4 people down there. And they certainly weren't singing lullabies. But maybe it was for the best. The boy opened the cellar door and slipped inside. The corridor was sparsely lit, and there was a pantry open right next to the entrance. The guy peeked into it just in case, to make sure there was no one there. And in case of emergency, he could hide in this room. Yes, there are shelves and bears in principle a place for a hiding place. But at that very moment, at the end of the corridor, footsteps were heard. It was the guest of the night police and the head doctor. The boy immediately recognized the figure of his superior. They were talking quietly about something, and as they approached, the boy could hear what they were talking about. What he heard made him not just overcome, but terrified to the point of truly experiencing fear not only for the poor girl, but for his own life. "Noah, thank you for the welcome. But you see, the warden's gone. We've had an emergency at the council since this morning. The commission's here, so we're saving Kathy for dessert, so to speak. Yes, you understand correctly. Everything is normal. No excesses or incidents. No one is interested in anything. Yes, in principle, everything's fine. Except we got a new orderly coming in for an internship. We didn't apply for the internship, but he did. So, they're interested in the job, and the clinic in particular. Why are our patients dressed so oddly? Of course, like you said, it's all been blamed on the tour and the theater we had a year ago. And then they disbanded it. But I don't think he believed it. So what do you suggest? Maybe we should press him a little so he doesn't stick his nose where it doesn't belong. No, I think I can handle it. And you know, it's normal to be questioned about our clinic. Michael listened and realized it was about him. His breath cleared, and he even found it hard to breathe. And as luck would have it, the couple stopped near the open door to the storeroom, where the new employee was hiding behind the racks with his colleagues. The policeman looked into the storeroom, but seeing nothing, quietly said to the head doctor, "Okay, Noah, let's postpone our sit-downs for the time being. Lie down while holding this girl. The chief liked her, and the school drill outfit matches. We'll be there in a couple days. In the meantime, we'll be in touch. Call me if you need anything." The head doctor didn't say anything. He escorted the guest outside and returned a couple minutes later. Michael, all these minutes, which seemed like hours to him, sat and did not breathe, although his heart was pounding frantically and was ready to jump out of his chest. And this breathing and heartbeat, it seemed to the lad to be striking a bell in the silence. But there was nothing he could do about it. The boy heard the head doctor pass by his cell and head deep into the corridor, muttering something to himself. After a few minutes, he looked out of the door and, seeing no one, slipped out into the street. He breathed in the cool air of the night and took a few deep breaths in and out and began to make his way toward the dead vine. At the fence, Michael walked slowly, not even looking around, being in slight shock at everything he saw. What could be going on in there? What did I see there? Nothing. Just heard the doctor and the cops talking about something. But I don't know what they were talking about. Maybe it's some kind of videotape as part of a police investigation. The guy was trying to drown out the thoughts that kept popping into his head, and he'd heard of costume parties like this a long time ago. But to have minds devoid of girls and women take part in it, there was no such thing. All right, who am I kidding? Trying to fool. There's definitely something going on in that basement that's scary and illegal. And it's got to stop. Poor girls. He didn't know what to do. He didn't know what to do. He'd have to go to Uncle Benjamin. That old bastard will surely tell him what to do, won't he? How? He'll help. The guy did not notice how he reached the house, how he went up to the floor and opened the doors with his keys, closing them quietly. Michael leaned against the wall and from powerlessness and experience simply slid to the floor. Grandma came out of the room at that moment and flicked the light switch. The bright light blinded the guy. And realized, "Grandma, why are you awake?" He tried to look normal, but apparently the expression on his face told the old lady everything. "Why? You want me to tell you why? What happened? Tell me." "You're white as chalk." "Grandma, I don't want to. I wish I was like this right now. Come on, go take a shower to wash off the negativity. Then we'll go to the table. I spared a cutlet, and I'll pour you one of my own." The guy did not argue, and simply went to the bathroom, pulled off all the clothes and scattered them on the way. When in the bathroom heard the sound of water, Betty collected the guy's things and threw them into the washing machine. "No dirt to lay around. I'll wash everything tomorrow." When Michael came out of the bathroom, there was a late dinner and a bottle of tincture on the table. The woman poured him a shot and handed it to him without saying anything. Nor did the grandson ask anything. He took it quietly and knocked it over. All at once. "Take the cutlets, mashed potatoes, salad. Let's eat." The guy sat down at the table without saying a word. He poured himself a second shot of olive and tipped it just as quietly and started on the homemade cutlets. He ate and thought, should he tell his grandmother of his suspicions? But Betty was not so foolish, as modern young people might think. I take it Kathy had gotten into the local psychiatric brothel and was simply being kept on psychotropic drugs. Michael chewed and nodded his head and simply couldn't drop a word. Not because he was eating, but because he was choked with emotion, and he didn't want to upset his grandmother. But his grandmother was not stupid and immediately realized everything as soon as his grandson entered the house. You know, grandmother, there are not only doctors involved, there are also the police, and most likely, the very top. They came here today, twirled around and left. It's like an emergency in the department. So they didn't stay the night. And this girl. And then Michael shook from the experience. Tears rolled down his cheeks, and he couldn't stop. How could they do that? It's not just they're renting prostitutes, who know what they're in for and where they're going. And all this with mentally ill women. How so? Michael, I get it. That's why I told you not to go there, but you wouldn't listen. And now you've got to figure out how to deal with it. You're not going to go to the police. You said it yourself. The whole chain of command is tied up. So what do we do? You can't go with a machine gun against everyone. You don't have to do it yourself. I told you. Go talk to our neighbor tomorrow. You know, the one below us, Benjamin. He's a thief. He's old school, I think. Plus, he's got a grudge against the police. So if he doesn't help, he'll certainly tell me what to do and who to turn to. The guy nodded his head and poured himself another olive. He drank and couldn't taste it. Slowly he digested all that he had seen and heard, thinking how he should proceed. But Babushkina's spit turned out to be quite strong, and already in half an hour the guy was pecking his nose. Go to bed, my sorrow. Tomorrow mother will come, and you with red eyes sleep. And then I'll cook for you for the evening. Pour the stuffed cabbage. With all this good stuff you'll go and ask your neighbor for advice. Grandma, thank you. I'm going. Michael only laid his head on the pillow, as he was immediately dreaming. He slept and did not dream. Though emotions so and so raged inside him. But apparently the young body could handle giving his head a rest. Indeed, he slept until almost lunchtime. And when he got up at 12 o'clock, he found no one home in the kitchen. All he caught was a note from his mother. Say, lunch on the table from his grandmother, stuffed cabbage in her purse, cash in the fridge in the back. We had a snack in Russia too. Michael went down to the second floor and called Uncle Benjamin's apartment. He didn't open the door right away, but he wouldn't let the guys in. Michael, do you want something? Uncle Benjamin, my grandmother gave you Golutsov, and he pointed to the bottle. And then I'd like to talk to you about a sensitive matter. The old one stomped on the doorstep. He liked Betty's stuffed cabbage, and it wasn't nice to say no to a neighbor. It wasn't proper. But he had guests he didn't want Michael to meet. The guy heard he had a stranger as a guest, maybe the lady of his heart, and he's here with his own problems. Uncle Benjamin, if I'm interrupting, I'm sorry, but can I come back later? Yes. Michael, I'm sorry, guest, come back at 8 o'clock. And here's Betty. A special thank you. Her stuffed cabbage is a work of art. Benjamin nodded his head and closed the door gently. Yeah, the stuffed cabbage and cash came in handy. There would be something to feed and drink an old friend. He came unexpectedly, and frankly speaking, the skull's visit surprised Benjamin and made him a little wary. And what does the skull need from old Kogan? And a vagabond. Yeah, maybe our old friend stomping on the doorstep for starters. Hopefully, the doorstep isn't where friends have a business conversation. Oh no, sure, come on in. Except there's nothing to buy. But I did not come here to eat. The restaurant will not feed. If you want strong tea with your girlfriends, I won't refuse. You owe me tea and my girlfriends. When Benjamin went to put the kettle on, the doorbell rang. It was Michael. but not the landlord. Neither did his guests know about it. Both were wary. But since Benjamin had long since retired and felt no guilt, he boldly opened the door. After talking to his neighbor for a few minutes, he returned to the room with the fools and the cash. "Oh, I see the delivery service is working perfectly," joked the skull. Yes, in the face of the upstairs neighbor. He came in to talk some business. So I brought this to butter the old man up. But I asked him to wait till tonight. In the meantime, try these homemade stuffed cabbage. By the way, and cherry is a delight. The men sat down at the table, poured a shot glass each, and, having drunk, had a snack. And how not to drink, because it would make the conversation easier. Benjamin looked at the old thief in the law and quietly asked, "What brought you to me? You didn't just come 10 years after our last case." "Yes, I did. And for good reason. I'll tell you right off the bat. I was put in charge of this town not that long ago, but I think you already know that. Now, I've heard rumors that young girls and women have been going missing in this town for the last few years. Well, you can blame it on anything, although all roads lead to your local mental institution. You know what I'm getting at? Yeah, I've heard bad things about her too," Benjamin said, and poured another round of shots. "But how can I tell you, Skull? They're just rumors. You know, you can't do anything without proof." "That's true. But in addition to the fact that young girls have been brought into this almshouse and treated for whatever reason, the cops have been frequenting it in recent months. They probably set up a brothel there together with the doctors and have fun there. And how not to party? It's a hell of a roof." "Skull, are you sure?" The old watcher nodded his head and threw a piece of fool into his mouth. He poured himself and his friend a shot for cream. What was there to say? Home-cooked food, still, that delicacy and luxury. And he, as an old thief who had spent most of his life in colonies and prisons, understood that. But that's not what we're talking about now. The daughter of a street Petersburg authority figure is missing. And so far, all roads lead here. You see, Alex's daughter is missing. Well, you remember him. He was on my team. Then he retired. He's got a family, but his daughter's missing. And all roads lead here to this mental institution. Yeah, and you said she could be in that new house. What about him? What did he do? He's been raising his own, and he's almost filed a police report. But nothing. Benjamin sat and thought about it. He really heard from his friends that in the last couple of years young beauties began to disappear and that it was the doctors or the cops who were involved. But that was talk, and no more evidence. But if the daughter of an authority figure has disappeared and the tracks led here, that's serious. Skull, couldn't it be a banal showdown? It's been speculated. But no, that's not it. Is that why I need your help? How long have you lived near this fine establishment in this town? Take a good look, Skull. By the way, Michael, but the guy who came in the other day with these fools, he works there as an orderly. How does he work? I think he's been there a while. But I asked him. That's what we decided. But in the evening, Benjamin didn't even have to ask the guy. 8 o'clock sharp. He was already sitting in his kitchen and drinking strong and sweet tea, which the owner had brewed and put in front of the guy. Come on, complain. Who has offended? What happened? Yes, you see, I only have a son-in-law here. You know, I finished the basic course in my medical school, and now I'm practicing. But guess what? I know our psychiatric clinic. I've complained before. And I warned you, it's gonna be tough out there. But what happened? And by the way, I have a couple questions for you about your psych ward. Later, though. Now, come on, tell me. So my grandmother and some other people said there was something going on there, but I didn't believe it. But my grandmother pointed out one thing to me. They dress. The young and beautiful in short dresses and stockings and braid their hair. And do you know why? Michael looked at his neighbor, and in his throat stood. He couldn't say it out loud, but he knew he needed help, at least in advice, at least in deed. The old thief sat and looked at the guy, realizing that he not only needed to speak out and ask for advice, but the conversation itself was going in the right direction for him. You see, Uncle Benjamin, they raped them there. Maybe they're even videotaping the whole thing. The guy just gasped at his own words and the realization that Kathy was there and what could be done to her. He took a breath and continued. That's why I came. I've heard about this clinic for a long time, but last night I decided to go and look around. But in short, Uncle Benjamin, I saw 2 cops going down to the basement, as well as our head doctor as an orderly. And they were taking a new girl down there. But apparently the cops had some kind of emergency, and they left quickly. But most importantly, I heard one of them telling our head doctor to leave the girl for later. The guy briefed me on the whole thing and looked at the reaction of the old tramp. On his face was read not only surprise, but also interest, especially a last news. Kathy was the name of the daughter of a street Petersburg authority who was considered missing or even killed, almost by order of the opposing gangs. And what does this girl look like? Tell me. I'm sorry, I'm asking you this for a reason. A friend of mine had a missing daughter. Her name was Kathy, and it all leads back to our town. Maybe it's her. The guy thought about it for a minute and started describing her in detail. But the most important feature the guy remembered was a scar on her left ankle. Then he listened and couldn't believe his ears. He knew the street Petersburg authority Alex and his daughter, and the very scar the girl had gotten, falling from a tree. His heart stabbed. Wow, that's how you find an authority figure's missing daughter. That's lucky. But maybe it's not her at all. Michael, why don't you show her to me? But we'll go tonight, when the patients are out on the street. Show it to me gently. But in terms of what's being done to them, we'll have to get into that basement, look in the nooks and crannies. Can you get the key? Michael shook his head negatively, but Benjamin just waved his hand. What can I expect from you? He went into the room and rummaged through the closet. A set of thieves' lockpicks was there. Basically, we can look inside this basement at night. Okay, Michael, when are you going to work? Tomorrow. Well, we'll go together early in the morning. You'll show me from afar the basement, and then if you're psychotic, sorry, patients are walking around. Point your finger at Kathy. They don't go out this early. They only let them out at lunchtime and in the evening. Okay, well, just show me the basement, and then at lunchtime, I'll come to that walk, and you can show me Kathy. But why? Uncle Benjamin, you think she's your friend's daughter. I knew for a fact she was no fool. From your description, it looks like it, but I'll have to see for myself. So Michael, it would help if you showed her to me. As for proof, I can pick any lock. Just dibs. It's our secret. I'll look, and then, if there's anything interesting, we'll figure out how to proceed. Michael was fine with that, and he calmed down a bit. But then I asked him the same question. What if there is nothing there that can be caught on? Michael, you're like a little child. I know exactly what to look at and what to look for. And then we'll set up a camera and film their antics. The old bastard chuckled, but when he looked at the boy's face, he stopped short. Yeah, I guess he wasn't laughing. Although, if you think about it, it's the height of cynicism to do such a thing as people in white coats and the police cover for them. Yeah, I got a special thing for the police. Plus, if this Kathy brothers thank me very much. Michael, I'm sorry. I guess years in places not so remote haven't made a saint out of me. But I do feel sorry for your charges, especially since some of them were just stabbed with antidepressants and sedatives, and now they're doing this. But that's okay. I'll take a look. We'll set up cameras if we have to. Then I'll report everything to the gang, and they will disperse your gang in no time. Michael listened and understood that the neighbor could do all this, But how to get the whole gang out? Uncle Benjamin. But understand the proof for your friends is good, but the case must be taken to court. Michael, do you take me for a fool? Imagine for a minute, if we're looking for my friend's daughter, he'll make such a scandal. He'll involve everyone he can. Lawyers and press, law enforcement, you name it. But most importantly, your head doctor and his cronies won't get away. That's what I need. Michael closed his eyes and leaned back in his chair. For some reason, he believed this old jailer, although he realized that Benjamin was not without sin. All right, Benjamin, let me show you the loophole in the fence at the entrance tomorrow, and then the cellar itself. And you can come to this vine by 12 o'clock. That's when our patients take their lunchtime walks. I'll try to show you Kathy. Benjamin nodded and sipped from a cup of strong tea. He was satisfied with today. Helping Skull and freeing Kathy would be a big plus for him, and he'd been wanting to mess with the cops for a long time, if they were really nasty in that asylum. Michael got up and went home. It was almost 22 o'clock on the clock. It was necessary to wash and sleep. Tomorrow was a crucial and decisive day. In the morning, Benjamin, already 6:45, stood near the entrance and smoked. He put on a dark, unremarkable suit cap and dark glasses. He pulled up a cigarette and thought about the situation with Michael, Kathy, and this almshouse in general. Uncle Benjamin, hello. Michael greeted his neighbor and extended his hand to him. The man flashed him a cigarette and shook his hand. Quietly, Michael said, "Just call me Benjamin without uncle. I feel like an old man. I'm not young, but I'm not an old man at heart. All right. You ready to go?" He nodded, and the men walked slowly in the direction of the psychiatric clinic, talking among themselves. Like old friends, Michael walked and looked around so as not to catch the eye of the head doctor or one of the orderlies. There was no need to draw attention to himself. Approaching the fence of the psychiatric clinic, Michael looked around carefully and pointed with his hand to the entrance to the basement. This is the basement, and there's an opening further along the fence into the grounds. Just right for you. Just right. Now let's move on. They went further, passing the very gap in the fence, which was so advantageously disguised by the leaves of wild ivy and vines. Michael looked around again and pointed to the platform. In front of the main entrance, this is our so-called women's quarters, and it's where our patients walk from 12 until lunchtime. If anything, I can say from my observation, Kathy often likes to stand under that London tree, which is closer to the road. I've noticed her standing under the tree a couple of times, looking out at the roadway. Kathy nodded his head and lit a cigarette. He went on his way, throwing a few words to the guy. Good, then I'll see you tonight, or rather, tomorrow. Drop by my place in the evening to look at the collections. Michael looked at his neighbor and said nothing. He's weird. But on the other hand, he needs help now. And if the neighbor helps, it will be great. After all, even one life-saving achievement of medicine shift this day went quietly. No incidents, excesses, or patient antics. No nighttime police visits that might have suggested bad thoughts. Except that Kathy was restless this day. Michael watched her from the residence window, and at one point, noticed the girl becoming anxious. She began to wave her head intensely, and her ribbons in her hair fluttered in the wind. Then she turned abruptly and ran away from the fence. Directing his life toward Black Pond, the boy looked carefully at the roadway. Near the curb stood a dark blue, unremarkable car, old, but on the move. Strange. Who is it? Michael said it out loud. And then another orderly, Liam, turned around and looked out the window. What kind of car is that? We've got to get to the bottom of this. And he ran out of the office. And in a few seconds, his broad back, the guy saw near the fence. The orderly waved his hands, shouted something in the direction of the driver. But apparently, it had no effect. A few minutes later, though, when the chief physician started to approach the car suddenly sped off. That's an interesting situation. What's all the fuss about? It's just a car. You can't even see through the tinted windows. Who's in there? After a couple of minutes, Liam entered the office red as a boiled crawfish and started pacing the room back and forth. Michael at first said nothing, and then asked with the most indifferent tone possible, "And who was it in the car?" "Yes, you see, Michael, one psycho or psychos drive here under the fence and look at our patients. File a police report." The guy deliberately put such a provocative question, looking at the orderly and watching his reaction, but his face reflected nothing but anger and irritability. What's the use of these cops? They only throw up their hands. They say it's none of our business. No corpus delicti and all that. And we have to run around chasing these assholes away. Yeah, there's plenty of crazy people out there. By the way, have you noticed how new this is? Kathy's patient react to that car. No, I didn't see her shaking, and she stood there shaking her head, and then she ran toward Black Pond. Oh, shit. Why didn't you say something? And the orderly rushed out into the street. I wonder why he reacted like that. Michael became curious, and he went to the window. The orderly was standing next to the head doctor, telling him something. Then he pointed toward the pond, and they both went there at a brisk pace. This is interesting, thought the trainee, and quickly ran to the first floor. He went to the artificial pond, which enjoyed a bad reputation already on the shore of the notorious Black Pond. The guy caught a picture on the shore, sat Kathy, and swayed, and near her stood an orderly and the chief physician, and nervously smoked. Guy did not understand what was going on, so he approached the trio and nodding at the girl, asked Noah, "What happened?" "Yeah, you know, Michael. The first day Kathy almost went swimming in the lake, and when Liam said she ran here, I thought she had a craving for water again. So she'd have wet her feet in waist-deep water. How can I put it, Michael? Our patients are such that they can drown themselves in a spoonful of water, and her reaction to the car Liam told me about also surprised me. She never showed any emotion before. Maybe the hypnosis has stopped working, and she is coming to her senses and grieving. You've probably been skipping classes on the subject of hypnosis, and it's the kind of thing that doesn't weaken over time. It's not sleeping pills or tranquilizers, is it? I guess, Noah, I guess. Both Michael and the doctor in charge stood by the lake for a few minutes, watching as the orderly took Kathy to the women's ward. I wonder what's going to happen to her and why she reacted the way she did to the car parked near the fence. Is there something to that? I'll have to tell my neighbor about it. Maybe he knows something, but the neighbor was the one in that car. Benjamin kicked his old broad out of the garage and thought it would be more convenient to watch the loony bin on wheels. It was at 1:30 that he drove the car up to the place where the loonies were strolling, and oh joy, near this fence stood Kathy. It was the daughter of the St. Petersburg authority figure. There was no doubt about it. Yes, he had seen her about 15 years ago. She had grown up and become a beautiful girl, but her eyes were still the same, just like when he'd seen her at her birthday party when she was 7. I wonder if the scar is still there. I should ask Michael to look at the scar on her leg. That's the only way to tell. I parked Benjamin's car with the window down and looked at the girl carefully. They must have drugged the poor girl with some pills. She's as good as dead. Eyes blank, all dressed up in some stupid costume. Yeah, I guess the guy's right about it all looking like something. The man rolled down the passenger side window more and called out to the girl, "Kathy, listen to me. Don't be afraid. I'm Uncle Benjamin. Do you remember me?" The girl stood there for a minute, paying no attention to the car and the driver. Then she turned her head and looked at him. At that moment, Benjamin waved his hand and smiled. But a meaningful thought suddenly flashed on the girl's face, and she began to shake her head, and then screamed and rushed running towards the park. Shit. Benjamin didn't expect such a reaction, and so quickly Closing the window, rushed out of the place in the direction of the city. I don't want to be seen here, otherwise they'll dump the office. Benjamin drove around the city for half an hour, and coming back, he could not resist and drove slowly along the fence of the psychiatric clinic. But there was no one in the yard. It must be lunchtime, the man said to himself, and decided to have a snack. He turned the steering wheel and headed for the nearest cafe to drink strong flavored coffee and eat a sweet mug. He had long favored this cafe with its own pastry shop. It served the strongest coffee and delicious pastries, just like when he was a kid. Yes, the man thought, when my grandson comes to visit me, I'll definitely bring him here with his father to drink coffee and eat more delicious food. But emotions came over Benjamin at the mention of his grandson, and a traitorous terror returned to his eye. You're not well. The waitress came up to the man and handed him a menu. No, the girl just remembered his grandson, who lives abroad with his father, and thought that it would be nice to bring him here. It's just a bit of a rush, so to speak. I understand. Coffee and a mug for you as always. Although, I'd advise you that our pastry chef has never tasted better. Let's have your labor. We should try it. Because, girlfriends. The man drank coffee and smiled at the rays of sunshine that penetrated the cafe, fell on his table and hands. It was so good to just sit there and think about nothing and enjoy every minute. But he had to go home and think about how to plan his evening, or rather, his night out at the clinic. Benjamin paid for his coffee and, leaving the waitress a generous tip, drove home. Already at home he slept, touched up, under the shower, and after making himself a strong tea, sat down in the kitchen. Coffee is good, but strong and sweet tea helped him to think. Probably habits from places not so distant were making themselves known, but he had long ago stopped paying attention to the fact that he was sitting down and what people would think of it. And now he was helping a friend whose daughter had disappeared under very strange circumstances. A traitorous terror came to Benjamin's eye again. He remembered his daughter, beautiful and clever, who had gone to the Emirates and found her happiness there. How she was happy about her new job. And her husband, who, to his credit, loved her very much. Pregnancy and rejoiced. But, so Benjamin Nikita do not need to wipe the snot and pull Kathy. And the man began to pack a backpack, a flashlight, and an old lockpick set for a night out. Machine oil, so the lock wouldn't stick, if anything. Now, having lost one daughter, he wanted to help his friend Kathy's daughter get out of the asylum. The man had long thought about why she had been kidnapped a year ago from her father's home, and many people had written it all off as a thievery. But that's not the case here. Alex is a competent and clever man. He's handled the most heated disputes, so sworn enemies parted as friends and best partners. And here, who would take revenge? No, the man shook his head. It's something else, he thought to himself, not what others think. Why did he think that? He didn't know. But if the girl he'd seen today was Kathy and was his friend's daughter, Benjamin realized what the reason might be. The girl had an unearthly beauty, her figure, long blonde hair, blue eyes, and she had the same mind as her father. And if he was right, then she was probably kidnapped by visiting tourists who were in the business of kidnapping and shooting racy movies. Maybe that's what happened. But the man was simply afraid to think what Kathy might have done. After all, even among the right criminal authorities, violence is a forbidden topic. A woman must be loved. She must be persuaded. You have to placate her with gifts and kisses, but you can't rape her. All the more to shoot nasty things against her will. It's one thing for a woman to do it for money. It's another to rape her. Well, it's gonna be all right now. Be patient, Kathy. Throwing his backpack over his shoulders, Benjamin went out into the street and headed towards the psychiatric clinic. It was already dark, and there were no stars in the sky. What pleased the old thief He quietly approached the fence and skulked away, but with a ducking motion. He stopped imperiously under a tree and looked around. There was no one. There was silence. It was ringing dark. Only, in the windows of the first-floor patients' rooms, there was a dim light burning. That's good. That means I won't need a flashlight. This light will suffice. And the man rushed to the cellar, quickly oiled the lock, and opened it professionally. Benjamin did not hang it in place, leaving the door covered, but not tightly, so that in case of need he could quickly run out. The hinges should be oiled as well. It wouldn't be good if the door suddenly peeked open quickly, coping with the hinges. The man began to listen to the sounds in the basement and slowly walked forward. The hallway was quiet. On the left side were storerooms, some closed, others without doors. That's fine, the old thief thought. There will be a place to hide in case of trouble. Strange, where these subhumans had found a porn studio. But at the very end, Benjamin saw a massive door, so stuffed with felt. Yeah, there you are, and soundproofed at the very end so. No one could hear the girls screaming, the bastards. He went to the door and listened. But what kind of work had been done there? But what kind of barrier was there? There was no door that could not be opened by an old thief who had gone through a fine school. Indeed, the locks were also hidden under a layer of felt. Good point. No sound will get through the gaps. Well, that's clever, but I'll get you open. The man lifted the layer of felt carefully and listened. Quiet, which means no one. That's good, which means we can work. And Benjamin carefully began to pick the lock. Yes, it's a fancy lock, but for a craftsman like me, it shouldn't be too hard to pick. And after a couple minutes, the man opened the door to the secret studio. Wow, that's quite a spread. The furnishings, state-of-the-art, technology, and newfangled digital equipment, all put to great use. No wonder with the police running it all. And apparently, they're making a lot of money. Yeah, I guess crazy movies are popular with crazy people. But that man heard how heavy doors, covered with his lacquer, began to open, and without thinking, Benjamin jumped under the bed. That's quite a situation. At least the bed was wide, and it was covered with a long sheet all the way to the floor. Shit, thought the thief. What a fool not to listen to what was going on outside the door. So I got him. The main thing is not to suspect anything and not to search the place. But apparently the unexpected guests didn't suspect a thing. Oh, look, Noah's already opened the door. Didn't have to fiddle with the lock. Yeah, Stas. It's a nice studio. There's plenty of room for fun. And the man sat down on the bed and took pictures, and he laughed. Apparently, it was the cops Michael was talking about, who had been let in by the head doctor. So Benjamin quietly exhaled and listened further. Yes, boss. What are we going to do here? Are we going to film racy scenes? No, just participate. We got some local girls from the head doctor. So we'll try new things, boss will. It's not very exciting, but it's mental. I don't know what's on her mind. Would she bite or stab at the peak of pleasure? No. Yeah, well, it's a valid concern, Benjamin thought. But if you had a knife, you'd be so heavy. You'd be falling out of bed. You must be 150 pounds. And all that on a young girl. Ugh, that's disgusting. But what to do? So far, luck was not on his side. But then another man came into the room and said, "Sorry, Mr. Mikhailovich, I can't make it today. Apparently, it's either the moon or the stars. But our girls are on a rampage. Aha." Apparently, the head doctor tearfully apologizes for his wards. But apparently, the police, brass didn't like the news. And he's not happy. Noah, why is that? Or does the hospital no longer have the appropriate injections? We've injected a couple of times, and the girl sleeps well. Yeah, we've already injected them, but it's still wrong. I'm sorry. Come back in a couple days and I'll put them on hard shots. Then they'll be as smooth as silk. All right, the cop said grudgingly and got out of bed, walked towards the exit. But next time, there should be 2 or even 3 girls. The doctor answered nothing, but only closed the door behind his guests, locking it shut. After a few minutes, the thief crawled out from under the bed and began to look around. He decided not to rush out of the room, but to put his video camera here. He definitely needed proof of what was going on here. Kathy then. He can quietly get out of the room, but this office needs to be covered up, and he knows to whom he will send the received materials. To his daughter Alex. Unsure he'd tear anyone's throat out. Quietly, looking around, only stopped her gaze on the partners who were closing the improvised window. So over there at the very top you can install a camera. Yeah, it was a good thing he had his introductions. And not too long ago, he'd been fitted with a mini camera that ran on batteries and turned on the recording at any movement. So, sweetie, put it up and film it here. And the other day I'll come and check what you've prepared for me and make sure the camera is in working order. Benjamin copied carefully his video, point, and check everything behind him and quietly left the room. He locked the door and quietly walked out of the basement. There was no one near the entrance, but still God protects him, said the nun. The thief said quietly and began to walk along the walls to the cherished fence. Going out into the street, he took and walked along the road, pretending to stroll in the picturesque. Cat, taking in his hands a pre-prepared bottle of beer. And even if he was stopped by the police, they would not be able to attribute anything but an administrative offense to him. Although it's not like breaking into a mental institution, but I'll get over it. And with a quiet step, he went in the direction of his house. Got to the house. Benjamin quickly for about 10 minutes and already in his apartment, having thrown off his clothes and stood under the shower, he exhaled with relief. Yes, I have not seen such a case since the dashing 90s. But the good thing is now there will be evidence and grounds to visit you, gentlemen in white coats on legal grounds, and smash your balaganza with all the proletarian hatred. We've had a night's experience. And the smell of a psychiatric clinic. Old Kogan went to the kitchen and made himself some tea. He had to think calmly about what he had seen and how to present it to his street Petersburg friend. The fact that they were making strawberries there, the man realized. And in principle, the camera will definitely record all the abominations. It's a matter of technique and time. But what about the girl who looked a lot like Kathy? You'll have to leave that to Michael. He works there, albeit as an orderly, but it would be easier for him to examine her under any pretext. Now, we just have to wait for the morning and for what Michael and I will bring. Benjamin turned off the light and left the cup on the table and went to bed. After all, the coming day also promised a lot of things to do and new information. It was necessary to have a fresh head to think everything over and make the right decision. Already, closer to 10 o'clock to the old thief at the door rang. Probably Michael, and he was not mistaken. Uncle Benjamin, I came straight from work to see you. May I come in? I've been waiting for you. I just got up and made breakfast. Give me my hands and sit down at the table. I don't feel like eating right now. Uncle Benjamin, do you have a lump in your throat? Our lunatics almost went crazy today. I don't know what happened, but they all went crazy. Some howled, others sang songs, and the women's ward all threw off their clothes. It was a restless night, I know. Michael looked at his neighbor perplexed, but did not ask anything. He sat down at the table and looked at the plate of scrambled eggs Benjamin had placed in front of him. I stopped by your lovely basement today and got into the spicy studio. And by the way, while I was there were visitors, most likely. Your Noah, the head doctor, and the police. But don't worry, nothing happened. First came the cops, then came your doctor and said that the patients are raging. So everything was quickly turned off. But it's not worth the wait. He promised them strawberries in a couple days. So, but no. But I left the video camera there for now. I'll pick it up in a couple days. We'll see what's on it. And then we'll figure out where to go and who to show it to. By the way, did you check to see if this new Kathy patient of yours has a cross-shaped scar? Yeah, the night before everyone else, I was working on her, and I got a good look at it. It's a small one just below the kneecap. Benjamin nodded and smiled. So it really is Kathy. She had been found. There was no doubt now. That was good. I'd have to get proof of the lechery, the doctors, and the police. Then we could celebrate. Victory. It's her, said Benjamin, eating scrambled eggs. There's no doubt now, but we have to wait a while. Let the camera capture everything, and then trust me, I know who to show the material to, and it won't go away. Uncle Benjamin, I realize you're a lawman, but it's one thing to have a criminal altercation and another. This needs to go to court. That's right, sweet man. What did you think? Gangbangers in black cars are gonna come in and shoot everybody, and that's it? No, we're just gonna show them all up. And then there's the lawyers, the courts, and of course, the media. Don't worry about that. Just keep your ear to the ground at your job and try to make sure that nothing happens to Kathy during these days. By the way, who's giving her the sedation shots? Yeah, there's this Liam. Orderly, big guy with huge fists. Why? Try to make sure you get the job. You make sure you don't give the girl the shots. She has to come off the drugs and be, so to speak, sober and clear-headed when it all comes to a head. But even if things don't work out, just keep an eye on her. Michael nodded his head and smiled, acknowledging the breakfast. He himself hadn't noticed how hungry he'd gotten in 24 hours and practically gobbled up everything he prepared in one fell swoop. Yes, he had a good appetite. The landlord looked at the young orderly and smiled. The man brewed tea and took out his favorite girlfriends. Let's drink tea. And listen to me carefully for now. Michael nodded his head, began to listen to the old thief. He told him that Kathy, supposedly the daughter of one of the street Petersburg authorities, it was time to close the studio, and his help would be very helpful. And she wasn't mentally ill, more like a kidnapping victim. Half an hour later, the guy was on his way home. Uncle Benjamin's gonna go, or my mother and grandmother will be worried. And you call me if you need anything. And where will you find out? Okay, while we wait. If there's anything new, I'll drop by Grandma's. Thanks for the goodies. She's always spoiling the old man. What are you, an old man? You'll give the young ones a head start, won't you? And shaking hands, the neighbors parted. Michael opened the door and from the doorstep heard the smell of his grandmother's famous PR. She at his place always cooked her signature delicious and grandmother's pie. Smells like from the doorstep. Why'd you stay late at work? Oh no, I stopped by my neighbor Benjamin's. But they're to talk and I was going to talk to the old fella about something. Mom, don't coach. No one's safe from jail or prison. We all could be, just like in my Elm's house, by the way. And the guy threw his backpack on the hall table and went to the bathroom to wash his hands. When he came out, he went into the kitchen, where breakfast was already on the table. Mom, I don't want any. I ate at work, but tea and cake would be great. Michael didn't tell her that he'd had breakfast at the old thug's. He didn't want to make his mother nervous. The woman looked at him carefully, but didn't say anything. Only the grandmother, apparently, guessed where her grandson had eaten, but shook her head, said nothing. Grandson. But I just put the pie on. We'll be ready only in half an hour. In the meantime, bear with me. All right, I'll help Siberia in the meantime. One boy nodded his head and gave his grandmother a peck on the cheek and went back to his room. Michael spent these days at home, waiting for information from Benjamin, but he was silent. They crossed paths in the yard a couple of times. But the neighbor only said hello and didn't say anything. And the guy didn't really insist. He understood that if he didn't say anything, it was the right thing to do. But on Sunday, Benjamin decided to check the familiar basement and take the camera. He didn't tell his neighbor about his plans. He decided to take the tape first, see what he had, and then act according to the situation. Late at night, Benjamin, as he did the first time, went to the cellar door and looked around. Everything was quiet, but the silence was deceptive. Come on, he had to go get the camera anyway, and he slipped downstairs, opened the greased door, and froze on the threshold. The man listened carefully to the sounds, but the silence was sepulchral. With quiet shuffling steps, Benjamin approached the very last door, orbited it, and varnished it and lifted it. At the keyhole, he listened carefully. Quiet. So the studio is not working for its intended purpose today. That's fine, no one will interfere. Quickly removing the camera, Benjamin headed for the exit, and just as quickly went out and closed the door as he came in. But as he passed the women's quarters, the man didn't hold back. He walked over to one of the dimly lit windows and peered through it at a bed and a dark-haired woman sitting on it. A woman dressed in a short dress with ribbons in her hair. Yes, thought the man. Another victim. How did I get the camera in time? He mentally pitied her because he knew what would happen next. But on the other hand, what could he do now? Nothing. Once outside, Benjamin walked home as before, pondering what he would see on the tape at home. He inserted the flash drive into the TV. The man began to watch the video, and what he saw there only confirmed his suspicions. And the worst and most disgusting, he angrily turned off the TV after a few minutes of watching, threw the remote on the couch, and went out onto the balcony. Yeah, that was to be expected. Okay, now we can show Alex all of this, and then let him think how to deal with these creatures and tell Kathy about it. Benjamin smoked a long time to calm down, and understandably so, seeing all that filth. Although he is a thief and experienced, has seen a lot in his life, but such a man has always respected women. But how do they even do it? They're sick women. It's unthinkable, and he couldn't find an answer. What's there to say? Mental illness must have its own degree of variance, or maybe it's congenital. Who knows? Benjamin threw the cigarette butt down and went to bed. What was it though? Even after a couple of minutes of watching, he was shivering. But apparently, fatigue and emotion took over, and the man fell into a deep but restless sleep. Already, in the morning, Benjamin was on duty on the balcony to look for Michael, who had to return from work. And when he appeared at the entrance, he called him and gestured for him to come up to him. Uncle Benjamin, anything new? Yes, not on our honor. Remember I told you I put a camera in the basement? Benjamin nodded and beckoned him into the hall, turned on the video, and let him watch. It was filmed by Michael. The orderly was horrified to see the head doctor and his cronies having fun with sick women at night. He certainly did not expect such a thing. The boy closed his eyes and quietly said, "Turn it all off." Benjamin did not argue. It was really disgusting. He sat there and didn't know how to go on living with it. Opening his eyes, he looked at the landlord and asked if he had anything to drink. He nodded his head and took out a bottle of vodka from the bar. He hadn't been drinking for a long time, but he always had alcohol just in case, and now he put a glass of white vodka on his neighbor's face. He held it out and said, "Wait, I'll bring snacks." But Michael did not wait for an appetizer, but drank the vodka in one fell swoop and sniffed it with his sleeve. At that minute, the host entered the room with a slice of sausage and cheese, but the guy nodded his head negatively and said, "I can have some more vodka, but at least you're behind the ring." Benjamin poured, sat down next to him. Michael drank this glass in one breath, and now he took a snack and looked at the old thief attentively, talking about what we'll do, what we won't do, and what you'll do. I already thought to show to whom it is necessary to give a report to their own. And they're already I will wait, what they will tell me. But I think it won't take long to get a reaction. I also asked you here on purpose. I want to warn you that there may be some serious inspections at your clinic in the near future. I'm aware of that. I hope everything's legal and these assholes don't get away with it. Don't worry, they won't. You tell me, how's Kathy? How can I tell you? I got the head doctor to let me give her shots, you know, just for show. But you know I didn't. But then, you see, Uncle Benjamin, she came into the clinic sort of hypnotized. So, she probably doesn't realize where she is. Or maybe it's like, she's in there. And is she really mentally damaged? I hope not. Although we can't rule out that possibility. But now, the main thing is to get her out of there. And then other specialists will deal with her. And Michael nodded his head. He was sober as a glass even after 2 glasses of alcohol. Apparently, the nervous shock did not let the alcohol to work. The guy sat on his neighbor's couch for a while longer, silently leaned back, then looked at the man and said, I'm going home. I need to be good. Just Michael, I'm begging you, don't do anything on your own right now. Do you realize how dangerous this is? That's one thing. And secondly, you can't do anything on your own. You'll only make things worse for yourself and Kathy and the other. Patience. The boy nodded his head. He realized he was right. And it was stupid and dangerous to take any action now. All he could do was wait. But he didn't wait long. The very next day, he was summoned to work. Michael, good morning. Is no bothering you? You've been summoned to work immediately. The head doctor's voice was frightened and trembling. Good morning. What's wrong? The guy asked. It was just for show. Did he realize what might be going on in his clinic? Nothing yet. Come on over. And the head doctor hung up. Yeah, that's how you guys got moving. Apparently, the neighbor got the materials to the right place. And now the guy quickly got dressed and started to leave the apartment when he was stopped on the doorstep by his grandmother. Michael, what are you doing up so early? The chief of medicine called. I have to go to work for my shift. So you didn't even bring any food? No, I didn't have a shift. There's something going on, and it's probably an emergency. Okay, then he slammed the door, and 5 minutes later he was at work. And what he saw made the guy very happy. A whole brigade of enforcers were crowding around the main entrance. Orderlies and doctors nervously stood and smoked in the distance, and patients were carefully taken out and put into ambulances. Michael approached the orderly Liam and asked Liam, what is going on? Don't you see OMON? We're raiding and cleaning up, and that someone is selling drugs. Go higher. Someone organized a porn studio in our basement, and they blamed it on our head doctor and a few of his henchmen. That's what it's all about. Michael made a surprised face, but at that very moment he saw Kathy being taken out of the women's building by 2 men and carefully put into a black Jeep. So she really was the daughter of a reputable thief. But thank God she wasn't mentally ill. He looked at her and was startled by the hand on his shoulder. It was you, Michael. The voice was commanding and quiet at the same time. He turned around and saw a man dressed in an expensive suit. He immediately realized that he was either one of the highest representatives of the government or a criminal authority. Michael nodded his head and only wanted to ask, who are you? But the man was ahead of him. I'm Alexander, Kathy's father. Benjamin, your neighbor, told me everything about you, about your help. So thank you for bringing my daughter back. You're welcome. I know it doesn't have to be this way. It's mean and wrong. Kathy's gonna be okay. The man nodded his head and looked at the boy carefully. But he didn't say anything. And what could he say if he didn't know anything about his child's condition? But God willing, everything would be fine. He just nodded his head once more, thanked him quietly, and turned around and walked to his car, which immediately sped away. As soon as he closed the door, Michael stared after him for a few minutes, reflecting on the situation, and at that moment the chief doctor and his associates were being loaded into the truck. It was all over. Michael did not notice how his neighbor Benjamin quietly approached him and clapped him on the shoulder. Now all the members of the Corps de Ballet have been captured and sent to places not so remote. Believe me, my contacts will make sure of that. And Kathy, it was her dad, but in a black BMW. Yeah, I think she'll be fine. And you, neighbor, thanks for pulling her and the other women out of that bondage. Michael raised an eyebrow, perplexed, not really understanding what the neighbor was saying, but he immediately clarified. You see, Kathy isn't the only healthy woman in this almshouse. Many beauties were just grabbed on the street and brought here under the guise of one or another mental disorder. And what was done to them next? You know what I mean. Now the shop's been shut down. And a special big thank you from my friends. The neighbor patted him on the shoulder and went home. And Michael stood on the street and smoked for a long time, realizing that there could be a great number of such clinics all over the country. After all, there will always be people like his chief physician, the chief of police, prone to such entertainments. But now, Michael realized that there was one less clinic of debauchery, and it was his direct merit. He walked home and thought about how a person's fate can turn out. Even take Noah, the head doctor, a respected man and an excellent specialist. But something drove him to such a crime. Kathy is the daughter of a wealthy father, albeit with a criminal record, intelligent and beautiful. She had suffered at the hands of non-humans who could simply stab her with drugs to the point of being a vegetable. But that's all in the past now, and his town can breathe easy. Oh, Michael, you got home from work so fast, lady. How's grandma's pie cooking? The grandmother looked at her grandson and realized everything on his face. She smiled and put her specialty pie on the table, pouring her grandson some tea-flavored tea. The woman knew that now everything would be fine in this town, and certainly no one else would get hurt. And all of this was due to her grandson. She was proud of him, as any grandmother would be. After all, it is probably right to say that one loves one's grandchildren more than one loves one's own children. Betty smiled, and after patting him on the head, sat down on a chair and carefully watched her specialty pie with doctors like him flying in both cheeks. One could be calm for every patient, for everyone.